All right, we're now live. I'll cut this first little bit out of here. And where's my notes? All right. It's time. We are back with the fourth and final installment of FFD 260 Redraft Rankings Roundtables. So far, we've broken down the quarterbacks, tight ends, and wide receivers. Tonight, we'll be looking into the running backs. We have three FFD 260 writers joining me tonight. Fellas, introduce yourselves.
My name's Mike Vanelli. You can find me on Twitter at MikeSports22.
My name's Ben Sigler. You can find me on Twitter at Sigs247.
At Siraco Soler. You can find me at CIRIACOSOLER.
Make sure you follow these guys and me. I am the at-home dad on Twitter at FF@HomeDad. So before we jump into the running backs, I want to take a minute to tell you guys to go back and listen to the earlier episodes. And most importantly, leave us a review to tell us what you like and don't like. It helps the show out greatly. Also, I want to shout out Pristine Auction, the best in signed authentic memorabilia. They're setting us up with our latest giveaway, a signed DeAndre Hopkins jersey that is just so sexy. All you have to do is follow us on Twitter at FFD260 and follow the directions on the latest tweet. And you can always go to ffdynasty260.com/giveaways for all the future giveaways that we'll be having throughout the year. All right, so we're going to be jumping into running backs. We're going to give you guys the top 24 by consensus, which is just the average of each of all of the FFD 260 redraft rankings writers. And then we'll break these rankings down to put players into tiers because tiers help you make better draft day decisions and make sure you're getting value in your draft. So without further ado, let's dive into the running backs. Coming in a very narrow win, we have Todd Gurley at number 1. Todd Gurley was the top running back last year, and it looks like a lot of people are kind of anticipating him staying up there. Siggs, you got him at 1 again this year. Why are you loving Gurley for 2018?
Well, I know there's a history maybe against him because a lot of times people don't repeat as a number 1 running back. It happens at wide receiver quite a bit, but not running back. What I was looking at is he led the league in rushing yards. He was second in receiving yards, and he did that on 20 less receptions. He only had, he only had 279 carries. But what I thought was interesting about that was actually only good for the 4th highest amount. So, I mean, he did pretty good, or did fairly good with a little bit less attempts than some of the other people did.
Yeah, I think for most of us, this top rank is going to go this top tier is going to go pretty quickly because, I mean, everybody has the top 4 guys all within the top 4. It's just a matter of which one you like a little bit better. So, Rocco, I'm going to call you out here. You got Gurley at 4. Why do you got Gurley at 4, sir?
Obviously, that's a typo. So I have him 1, but I mean, I couldn't even, defend having him at 4. I mean, unless you just don't believe what you saw last year and you saw 20 touchdowns. You saw people winning leagues left and right with this guy. I mean, almost everybody in every draft is going to draft him number 1. So, maybe I have to go back and check my numbers.
Maybe you need to do that because I'm looking at a 4 right here, Rocco. All right, so I'll go to me because I got him at 3. And my only thought with Gurley is I don't see him being able to maintain the type of success that he had. I think the Rams team is on the rise, but I think he just had one of those historic years that everybody regresses a little bit from. And that's not to say that I'm dropping him outside of a number 1 running back. I have him at 3. I just like the other guys slightly better because I feel like their workload is going to be a little bit higher.
I mean, you have a top 4 bracket, and I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those top 4.
Yeah, so let's drop down to the next guy in the top 4. We got Zeke coming in consensus 2. I wanted Zeke to be number 1. I had him number 1 all the way up until this past week when his starting center, Frederick, got diagnosed with Guillain-Barré. Looks like it's spelled like Jillian Barr, but Guillain-Barré, my doctor friends are telling me, is the appropriate pronunciation. I have to fade Zeke a little bit because of that, just because that offensive line is so dominant. And last year, when you saw a major part of that line leave with Tyron Smith, it just became much more difficult for that offense to function. So I am giving Zeke a little bit of a knock. I had him at number 1 and then had to drop him to 4 here. Fellas, what are your thoughts on Zeke?
Well, I got him at 4 like you, and part of it is the concerns about the offensive line now with the Frederick issue. Zach Martin's battling a knee issue. Tyron Smith is reportedly got chronic back issues, and I'm a little worried about the line as a whole. But I still had Zeke as my 4th running back prior to, because my rankings are in PPR, and unlike Bell, DJ, and Gurley, Zeke's not a PPR kind of catch monster running back. He did move down my overall rankings from 4th to 5th behind AB and PPR because of the online issues. But again, like we're talking about, these 4 guys are all top 4 or 5 picks in any kind of scoring system. It's really just your preference based upon little nitpicks here and there.
Yeah, and I was actually projecting Zeke to make a jump in PPR this year because I expect him to get more passes. Sigs, Rocco, you guys still have him at 2. Anything you guys want to throw in there?
I mean, you go ahead, Sigs.
Okay. If I'm backing up just a second too, I think I said Gurley led the league in rushing. He didn't do it. It was by like 20 or 30 yards. Hunt at it, but I don't want to start off on the wrong foot either. With Zeke, I mean, he was probably just in the bottom half of the top 10, and he didn't even play all the games. I think, what did he play in, like 10 games with having to sit out and
suspension? Yeah.
So I mean, if you prorated his points per game out, I mean, he would have been like the 2nd or 3rd back. Not to say that he wouldn't have a bad game or maybe get injured playing that many more games, but I guess I agree with you that I think he's going to pick up some more receptions and pick up some more catches. And, you know, I think their line being so good in Dallas, I know they're nicked up and dinged up, but I mean, he's at the top of this list for a reason. He's one of those guys where he can kind of be able to maybe play with one lineman playing subpar and not really affecting his game too much.
Yeah. So
I mean, they have a running quarterback, which opens up a lot of lanes as well. So I mean, they're going to run the ball a ton. I mean, it's going to get the volume, so that's a volume play more than anything.
But their wide receivers, it doesn't really feel like they're going to be throwing it a whole lot. And if they do, hopefully it would be to Zeke. And yeah, it's a little scary there. So on to a guy that will get lots of targets, who was the number 1 reception leader for running backs last year. Le'Veon Bell comes in 3rd. Mike, you got him at 1. I have him at 1. Rocco, you have him at 1. Siggs, you got him at 3. I mean, how are you splitting the hairs on this one, Siggs?
Well, I guess my feeling that last year when we watched Bell come back and everyone that drafted him started him right away because it's Le'Veon Bell, and then he put up a couple of subpar performances. And I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of deja vu-ish feelings where, okay, well, they had the same thing with contract, couldn't settle anything. And I don't know. I just, this is one of those things too, where any of these guys could be a scratch off ticket winner. And I just liked Gurley and Elliott just a hair better. I don't know if I can point to a stat or anything other on, in all honesty, I think I probably, looking back, because I did these a while back, the thing that probably hit me was he did have a lot of touches. He had a lot of carries last year. I guess other than the fact that it's, behind Gurley and behind Zeke, he could just as easily, in some weeks he's going to beat those guys, in some weeks not. So 3 is one of those things where it's doesn't mean he's bad. It just means I liked 2 guys better.
Yeah, and just mentioning about his slow start, his first 2 games, he had 7.7 and 13.1 fantasy points. But that also came against Cleveland and Minnesota, who, even though Cleveland was abysmal last year, they actually had a decent run defense.
Yeah.
And Minnesota just has a strong defense from sideline to sideline. So
in the first game of the year, I mean, you got months to plan for whoever you're going against too.
yeah. So I mean, that's part of the reason why he probably came in slow. I kind of don't expect him missing out on the whole offseason to really hurt him too much. But Mike, Rocco, anything you guys want to throw in there to fortify the argument for why Bell should be number 1?
Well, for me, it was deciding between Bell and Gurley for the top spot. And what ultimately did it for me with Bell versus Gurley is I'm not concerned about him getting off to the slow start. Like you said, the first 2 games were against good run defenses. And then over the rest of the year, he averaged just under 25 PPR points a game. So I'm not worried about the slow start. You might get 1 or 2 games on the 10, around 10, and he'll pick off to his normal self. What sold it for me was his Gurley last year, despite the great year he had, more production of his points came from the touchdowns. He only averaged 23 touches per game compared to 27 for Bell. So I think Bell's just a tiny bit safer, given that we've seen him do this over and over again. In 3 of the last 4 years, the exception of the year he was hurt, he has finished as a top 3 PPR running back. So he's just the slightest edge over Gurley for me because I think he's just slightly safer.
Yeah, I can see that. A little bit of a safety pick there.
And he's on one of the top offenses in the league.
And that's always a huge plus there. I think Dallas, I think, is probably the weaker offense out of those 3 guys. But that should still be all right. So another running back with a offense in flux is David Johnson. We're a little bit more all over the place with David Johnson. Siggs, you have him at the end of this 4-man tier at 4. So why don't you lead us off?
Now, this one was a little bit more clear cut for me, where again, I kind of like going after him in leagues because I think people will go after these top 3 really hard. So you can maybe have David Johnson fall if you can consider 4 falling. You look at their offense as a depth chart on paper. Okay, they got Sam Bradford. You got to almost assume he's not going to finish the year, whether it's through injury or Rosen before his injury the other night, maybe coming on. And then you got Rosen, how he might, now that he might be dinged up a little bit, I'm not sure what his injury status was, but he might not be ready, or maybe not physically ready, mentally ready. And then you look at, okay, well, he probably has more question marks or more things that would have to go right in his favor to help him be at the top, the very top of this list, and unseat one of these other 3 guys we've been talking about. Again, it's not really a fault. It's just that I kind of have these other 3 guys a little bit higher. I'd be happy with any of these top 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, I'm not worried about DJ's play this year. Coming off the wrist injury is a fluke thing. He's been healthy the rest of his career. And what really sold it for me for DJ to put him 3 over Zeke is the offense line issues for Dallas. And in PPR, DJ's going to catch 70, 80 passes, which gives him a clear advantage over Zeke. And outside of Fitzgerald, the Cardinals don't have any proven weapons that you can say, okay, they're going to cut into Zeke's pass targets. And while the offensive line is concerned, given the fact that he is going to catch so many passes, I'm not worried about his yards per carry taking a hit or his touchdowns taking a hit because he's going to make up for it in the catches.
Yeah, and I love last year too, where people would just be like, "Oh, he's injured." It's like it was his wrist. It's not his leg. It's not an ankle, a knee, anything. It was a wrist.
You'd be more concerned if it was a knee or an ankle issue.
Yeah, legs are fine. And David Johnson is just, he's one of the best athletes in the league. I mean, at the running back position, sometimes you just, he's just a great runner. He's over 90th percentile and several. I mean, if you look at his player profile, it's just unreal. And I've just the numbers he put up, 20 touchdowns a couple years ago when he was healthy. That guy can win you your league. I mean, he's he's definitely in the top 4. I mean, shit, he's a good, amazing player.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's really thinking David Johnson is going to be a bad pick for him at the top of the draft here, because like you guys said, even the concerns about the injury, even the concerns about the offense, he should still be able to overcome a lot of that. So let's move into our next tier, because that top 4 tier is pretty solidified. Next up, we have 3 guys coming in. They all are between 6th and 7th in our consensus rankings. And the first one up there is Alvin Kamara at 6. He's our 5th running back coming off the board. Mike, you actually have him the lowest at 7. Why the hate for Kamara?
I hate when you say hate. Like I think he's running back 15. 7's not bad. There's 2 reasons with Kamara. I think the other 2 guys I have in this category, Gordon and Barkley, they have less competition in the backfield. Barkley, nobody's challenging him, and Austin Eckler, while he's nice, he's not going to take snaps away from Gordon unless Gordon's dinged up or injured. Meanwhile, Kamara does have Ingram, and while we all discredit him because of the PEDs and the 4-game suspension, he finished the RB6 last year. Is he going to fall off a cliff and finish in the 30s? I don't think so. So even if he falls back into the teens or even the 20s, he's still going to cut into Kamara's workload somewhat. The other thing that concerned me about Kamara was his touchdown rate. He scored a touchdown on once out of every 15.5 touches, or 6.5% rate. Now, if you look over the previous 4 years, no running back has averaged over 6%, and the closest was Jamal Charles back in 2014 at 5.7. If you take all the running backs during that time period and count the ones who had a 5% TD rate or higher, the following year it drops back by 2.5% on average. Now, if you take Kamara's 2017 numbers and just adjust the touchdown numbers to a 4% rate, he would have slid back to the RB6 in PPR. So I feel like his ceiling is not able to reach that top 4, and I think there's some risk to him in terms of he could fall into that back end of RB1, but I still think he's a lock for an RB1 finish no matter what.
But people forget about the scenario where they had Adrian Peterson there in the beginning of the season, so he didn't really come on to like the 3rd or 4th game of the season.
Yeah, but all the running backs the first couple weeks of the year, him, Ingram, and Peterson all just struggled. It wasn't until after they traded Peterson that everybody kind of found their role and both running backs took off running.
And from a coaching standpoint, I feel like Sean Payton in New Orleans just always has a running back by committee. Like even when he had Mark Ingram, and they still have Mark Ingram, he's just suspended for 4 games. But when they had Mark Ingram and Tim Hightower on the roster, he still split carries. So even with Kamara potentially being the lead guy for the next 4 weeks, I don't see him ever being a bell cow. Like those first 4 guys are bell cows. Nobody's cutting into their workload. Whereas Kamara, I feel like he has all the potential to be in the top half of those RB1s. But the fact that we can't expect him to be that guy that's going to get the majority of touches, the majority of receptions, just be the one and only guy on his team, I think that hurts him kind of more than anything here.
I agree. Back to the Saints Super Bowl run, they've always had a dominant run game of more than one guy. And we don't want, this is going to rub people the wrong way, but Alvin Kamara is a super version of Darren Sproles. And they don't want to put 30 touches a game on him and wear him down. As Sean Payton has said early in the offseason, Kamara's workload is not going to super jump up with Ingram out. They're going to use whoever they feel is the next best back, whether it's Jonathan Williams or Boston Scott, and give Kamara more workload than last year, but not throw 25, 30 touches a game on him in the first 4 games.
Yep, absolutely. So the next guy up is actually my favorite to be a little bit higher, because I think he flirts with that workhorse role, and that's Melvin Gordon coming in at 6.8, our 6th running back off the board. Like I said, I like him more than Alvin Kamara because of those reasons. And it looks like all of us here, except for Sigs, have Gordon at 5. So what are your guys' feelings on Gordon?
Well, I think Gordon is underrated. Like you, I think he has, of this group, the most potential to jump into that first tier. And people underestimate Gordon because it's the same draft class as Gurley, and Gurley had the great year last year, and Gordon's good season got overlooked. But the last 2 years, Gordon has finished as the RB7 and 5 in PPR. And, Austin Eckler's nice, but he's not going to cut his workload. Keenan Allen's the other, alpha dog in that offense. And then after that, with Hunter Henry hurt, it's a bunch of question marks. There's no reason why Gordon should not finish as the top 5 or 6 guy again this year.
I would agree. I know I have him at 6, but I mean, we're splitting hairs. If we put all ours together, it's 5, 5, 5, 6. I just happen to be the one at 6, and I put Kamara up because he's going to have a couple more weeks where Peyton can say he might not get more touches in those weeks, but there's going to be some games where they need him to be a little bit more explosive. And there's nothing wrong, again, with Melvin Gordon. I sometimes think he might need more carries to get some of his yards. I wholeheartedly agree, though. This is one of the first years where he doesn't have like a Danny Woodhead or someone else that might come in to spell him a little more than just giving him a rest, where he might stay in for a couple of series or in certain situations. But I definitely like Melvin Gordon this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of a couple guys that are going to get that top 4 of the top 4 guy workload. You got to bet on volume with him. He's going to get the volume. He's going to get touchdowns. He's going to get catches. He's going to get carries. He can definitely be a type of guy that can carry you, as your running back, 1 or 2 to a championship.
Yeah, and if you look at Gordon over his past 3 years, every year he's gotten better. He's increased his touches. He's increased his yardage. He's increased his receptions. He's increased his receiving yards. He's increased his averages, 3.9. And I think that's what everybody kind of kills him for, is that his rushing average is tops out at a 3.9. But the Chargers also don't have a good offensive line. Like last year, they finished, according to Pro Football Focus, is the 24th best offensive line. And this year, they're projected to be the 23rd best. So with a sub-average offensive line, he's putting up really good numbers. If they can actually get, Mike Williams to draw some coverage away and pull some of the secondary out of the box, we might see Melvin Gordon increase his efficiency and become even better than what he was last year, when he had, 1,100 rushing yards, almost 500 receiving yards, and 12 total touchdowns.
Yeah, the offensive line should be improved this year as they get Forrest Lamp back, who tore his ACL in camp last year. That should help the offensive line, certainly. And the thing about Melvin Gordon that nobody ever mentions, he has back-to-back years with 12 total touchdowns after not having any as a rookie. If you're, in standard scoring and you want those touchdowns, he should be the fifth guy taken after the big 4. He gets you the touchdowns and the yards per carry. Like I said, with Lamp coming back this year, it should for the first time get over 4.
Yeah, and last note on Gordon, because I like him. I don't want to talk too much on him, but I feel like it's public perception that if you have a trash rookie year, like you score no touchdowns like Melvin Gordon did, that you're automatically labeled the bust. And I think Melvin Gordon's a prime example of one of these guys who he showed plenty of flashes in his rookie year, but just didn't actually get, all the things that he needed. And he got that coming back last year, but then everybody still wanted to say, oh, well, it was a fluke because his rookie year was so terrible and his touchdowns went from 0 to 12 and yada, yada, yada. And then he does it again. And I can see him continuing, maybe not 12 touchdowns every year, but I can see him continuing to be a good running back, even though his rookie year wasn't, phenomenal. So our next guy up is actually the number 1 rookie that everybody's going to talk about, and that's Saquon Barkley. He comes in consensus at 7-4, our 7th running back off the list. And the end of this tier, I'm low on Barkley. So you guys have them at 6, 7, and 8. Talk me through your love of Saquon Barkley.
Well, the only argument I come up with against Barkley is he's a rookie, but as we've seen, rookie running backs come in and make an impact from day one. Last year, we had 4 rookie runners finish in the top 10 in PPR scoring, including 2 guys in the top 4 and Huntley in the league in rushing. 2016, Zeke was in the RB2 in PPR and standard scoring and averaged a touchdown per game. While the Giants' offensive line isn't very good and there's some concerns that the right side's going to be a big issue for them, Barkley didn't have a great online at Penn State, and he still wowed everybody every single week. And given the fact that he can catch, again, in PPR, I'm not worried about his yards per carry being under 4 and he struggles between the tackles because he's going to catch 65, 70 passes.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced. Rocco, you go.
I mean, the passing is just, the passing is what's gonna, really set them apart. Running backs that can catch the football. That's the guys you draft at the top of drafts. That's like the secret sauce. A running back that can run between the tackles and catch the football, and he might be the best pass catching back coming in the league that we have seen in a long time. I mean, it's a strength of his, and he's not just going to catch the ball. He's going to catch the ball and shake a couple people and take it to the house. I mean, and he, he's picked at number 2, so that's that they're going to have, they can't draft him at 2 and draft him at 2 and not give him the love, not give him the carries. Sorry, I'm multitasking here.
Especially because then they passed on Darnold, who's looked pretty well for the Jets in preseason thus far, and you got a lot of Giants fans who are kind of upset they passed on Darnold.
And you know what? I get all of those things. I agree with the fact that they drafted him 2nd. They're gonna give him work. I agree with the fact that he is he's a physical specimen. He looks good running between the tackles in Ohio State, and he, catches the ball great. But if you watched him in the first preseason game, he had 1 incredible run and then 3 just blown up, didn't go anywhere. Tried bouncing some runs outside that he should have just taken and run forward and gotten the 3-4 yards that were there. I think his final stat line was 4 runs for, was it 31 yards or 41 yards? And
Eli played in those games or what?
I think Eli was his quarterback at that one, wasn't he? It was one of the earlier ones because he's also now hampered with a hamstring injury. So I'd have to go back and check to see who his quarterback was there, but I feel like that offensive line is so bad.
But that's the smallest of the small sample sizes. You watched, a little bit of preseason and he got hurt and he's out, he's out till the start of the season. So I think that.
But his offensive line being trash is not a small sample size. That is like years of the Giants line being just absolute trash.
But they've invested in the line. They should have had in years past.
Yeah, they invested in Nate Soldier, who's 35 and gave up, 50-something pressures last year.
Oh, so he's done?
I mean, maybe this is just bias, but anybody that I feel anybody the Patriots give up is worse after the Patriots than they are on the Patriots. Like, I feel like the Patriots are one of those teams that, like, they just milk the person for all that they're worth, and then when they go on to another team, it's like, wow, you were so good with that team. Why do you suck now? So,
Patriots way.
Yeah. And I mean, they drafted Will Hernandez in, what was it, the 2nd round?
Mm-hmm.
But
I will say, if they ever want to trade for one of your players, you tell them no, and you figure out why they want to trade for this guy.
That's very true. They do get rid of players 1 year before and then 1 year after when they should get rid of them. Nate Solder's 30, by the way, not 35.
Oh, he just seems old.
And Eli Manning did play in the first preseason game.
Yeah. So I mean, there's like a number of things there that are like, I still have Saquon as an RB1. I think he's still going to be there, just because of probably sheer volume alone. The fact that they're not going to be able to put 8 guys in the box all the time because you have good receivers on the outside there. I'm just not willing to use my either 6th or 7th, sometimes earlier, depending on if I'm drafting with a lot of Giants fans, which living in New York, I do draft against a lot of New York fans. Like, I'm just never going to own them because I would rather have a guy like Gordon who has shown that he can play at this level.
I'll finish with this point. I just gave him an ungodly amount of money. He's making $37 million this year for me.
Oh, and your Real Sports
That's why I'm broke, man.
Hey, hopefully that works out for you. Like I said, maybe this is one that comes back and bites me in the end, but I'm willing to deal with it for right now. All right, let's drop down to our next tier. We got a new tier, 4 more guys coming in, and it just kind of shakes out that the next 4 guys are all 4 sophomore guys because they were all able to show something in their rookie year to put them up into this range. So the first guy coming in is Leonard Fournette at 8.2, our 8th running back off the board, and we all have him either at 9 or 10. Siggs, you didn't really join in the Barkley conversation, so why don't you lead us off with the Fournette conversation?
I know the knock on him coming out of college is that he was going to be dinged up or that he plays injured a lot and that's going to wear him out in the NFL. And I don't really think we saw that as much. Maybe they slow played him a little bit and didn't let him get beat up. But I mean, I like Fournette. He's one of the guys that I'm going to try to get. I know we got him at 10 and 9, like you said, but I mean, I'm going to try to get him and maybe one of the other top guys and then just kind of let everything else fall where it may. He's got a really good catch rate as much as people, I don't think of him with a receiving back. He caught 75% of what they threw to him, at least is what was rated as a catchable ball. Now, granted, he only got 48 targets, but he turned that into 36 catches and just over 300 yards, and he did have a touchdown with that. I think he kind of proved himself to the team. And maybe they'll just feed him a little bit more and if he can catch 75% of the balls, it's like, hey, let's get him another 1 to 2 looks per game and turn that into a lot more catches and a fair chunk of more yards. Because I know he's got a decent backup in TJ Yeldon, but he's got the body and the frame and he's young yet, to just say, hey, we're going to try and pound this down your throat. And the opposing team is going to say, you know what, we're going to make you beat us through the air anyway. And they're going to stack the box because I don't think a lot of NFL people or fantasy people believe that Blake Bortles is someone that's going to torch you. A lot of his points last year in yards, that's a lot of garbage time where they were ahead and their defense is helping them out. So Leonard, I think, should do probably better than what we've got him rated here. He might sneak even overall at the end when it's a little bit higher than 9 or 10.
Yeah, I can see Fournette having a good year. My hesitancy is that he's had a foot sprain, an ankle sprain, a quadriceps strain all last year. So like that makes me nervous that he has so many injuries all on the lower half. Like we were talking about David Johnson with, he missed an entire year, but it was just his wrist. It's not like his lower half that a running back has to have. And I mean, a wrist is obviously important to have for a running back too, but it's not all of these lower body injuries. But Fournette could be one of these guys, kind of like Frank Gore. When Frank Gore came into the league, he kind of had he had this injury-prone label, and now look at him. I'm just going to throw 35 out here. That's my number of the night. What is he, like 35? And he's had
he's like 50 in NFL years.
Yeah. And he's had how many seasons of like full 16 games ready to go since, what was it, his third, maybe fourth season when he had this last like little ding that took him out a game. I could see Fournette maybe being one of those types of guys that, right now he's just coming in with this injury label that eventually that narrative is going to have to shift because he becomes a beast.
I mean, honestly, people get injured when they run into him. So, you know, I'm not a doctor, so I don't put too much stock in trying to diagnose, you know, everybody's injuries. But what I do know is that offensive coaches, what do they believe? Run game and defense wins championships. So he's going to get fed the ball. And something I didn't even realize, I just looked it up. He had 36 catches. I mean, he's not real pretty catching the ball, but he's getting love, you know, catching the ball just by being out there, you know, all 3 downs. So he's a 3-down back. You know, you got to draft him, you know, pretty high in the first 2 rounds. I got him in, you know, the middle second in a recent draft. FFD 260. Shout out to the fans of the league. I took him in the 2nd round. I feel great about it. You know, I paired him up with Kamara.
Yeah, and, I feel like that's a great pairing, and I think that's like if you can get Fournette and you know anything beyond like the end of the first, early second, like you're getting a guy to steal there, because I think he can be one of these guys that he's the only guy on the field. He's getting every rep out there, the first, second, third down work. I just feel like he's going to miss at least 2, maybe 3 games with some kind of, seems like ankle sprain. Seems like his thing.
Yeah, and the other thing with Fournette is, like you said, all the injuries and whatnot. The 3 games he missed last year, the other Jaguar running backs, which wasn't a group of, you know, elite guys, they averaged the same yards per carry as he did. So the Jaguars might decide, you know what, let's protect him from himself a little bit, lighten his workload, and play some of these other guys as well. To push back on Rocco's point, he did catch so many passes last year, but his 3.7 targets per game was the lowest number for any RB1 last year, while 9 of the top 12 had 70 or more. So he really is at a hamper in PPR.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not the first thing you think about, but you're just kind of surprised that he does catch passes. You know, he's not a Jordan Howard for sure.
I love how that's an insult.
I think they had around the same number of catches, though, but I'll let it. I agree. You don't think of him in bad hands as you do as Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard, you think hands, you go, uh-oh.
Oh, wait till the love you.
Yeah, I mean, you just physically seen him drop so many passes with your own eyes, you know, in the few games that you've seen him play, you know.
Exactly.
Big ones too.
Let's move down to a guy that has actually had some decent receptions. Kareem Hunt comes in as our ninth running back off the board. Consensus rank 8.7. Siggs, you got him all the way up at 7. What has you putting Kareem so high?
Well, one of the things I usually look at is like how many touches are they going to get, and in relation to that, what's their competition? Do they get red zone looks? Do they get targets and decent reception numbers? And he pulls down all those. I mean, again, Spencer Ware kind of lost his job to injury, as much as that's kind of a cliche. Well, you don't lose your job to an injury. He did. And then Kareem Hunt last year, a lot of people were like, oh, he's going to be the sleeper. If there's a guy on day 2 or day 3 of the draft that could come in and make a good run in the NFL, it would be Kareem Hunt. I don't think much has changed in their offense, where, I mean, they got a new quarterback, I know, but they're still going to, I think, be smart enough, Andy Reid will, to stick to his mantra, which is putting the ball in his skilled players' hands. And I think that's Hunt. He's just one of those guys, again, where he can repeat what he did last year, because last year, I mean, he did lead the league in rushing. You know, I misspoke when I said Gurley did. He had 1327. He had double digits touchdowns when you add them all together. He only missed 10 of his targets. And on the 53 receptions he got, he was at 455 yards. So, I mean, he could be, knowing that he's going to be the number 1, or was all last year, as a sophomore, a little bit more knowing what to expect in the NFL. I think he's going to be fine, which is why I got him at 7.
Hello.
All right, there's an awkward pause there, but yeah, we're all here.
Hey, I really worry about.
We'll edit that out.
I really do worry about Spencer Ware, though. That I mean, he's not going to just go away. I mean, he was there with running back 1 a couple years ago, and they had a lot of success with him. I don't think they're going to get I mean, Kareem Hunt's not going to see the same usage he saw last year. That's the one thing that concerns me. There's a lot of in this team there. They have, they brought in more receivers. They got a new quarterback going. It's just a lot different than what we saw last year. So it's just a little more question marks for me.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Spencer Ware, but he's not even really healthy yet. I know I got Hunt at 9, but I kind of feel it's a little low. He led the league in rushing last year, as Siggs mentioned, but it was only 6th in rushing attempts. And we all know that middle part of the year where he just staggered out and was horrible fantasy after starting off hot and then finishing hard. He was a top 24 back 73% of the time. And while there's some concern with the quarterback change, the addition of Watkins, there's not much challenge for him in the backfield, especially now that they released Arkandrick West. He should see more snaps on third down.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Hunt and Spencer Ware worked themselves into a little bit of a running back by committee here. That's why I thought I was just gonna be the only one speaking to this because I have him, 2 to 3, 4 spots lower than everybody else. But I think Spencer Ware never got a chance to beat out Kareem Hunt. Until right now when he's slowly starting to get better again. I think the Chiefs offense is just question marks all over the place, which means that you're going to get one of two things. You're either going to get a value getting Kareem Hunt at the back of these RB1s in terms of drafts, or you're going to get a complete bust because that offense just goes down the pooper and you get a guy that you're drafting, end of the first, beginning of the second in 12-team leagues, and you get a RB3 or worse.
I mean, we could all create the scenario in our head where, Kansas City is one of the top 5 offenses in the league and, everybody eats, but, it's probably not going to happen.
I love me some Patrick Mahomes, but I'm not even going that far to say
they might have the best set of skilled position players, arguably in the league if Mahomes gets it together.
Well, I think what'll help too is everyone will.
Hello?
Uh-oh. Ben cut out.
Oh.
I think it's going to be that
Ben, pause there and start over because you cut out from right when you were jumping in.
Okay. Well, one of the things I think with Hunt, his quarterback, one of the things that Andy Reid can do is help him out, help the quarterback out by now they got 2 backs. If Spencer Ware is fully healthy again sometime early this season, is you take it out of the quarterback hand and do some handoffs and make sure that he gets comfortable and doesn't have to try to air it out down to Hill or to Watkins or to Kelsey. Don't let him make as many decisions early on and build his confidence. I think they'll be able to do that with Hunt. And I also don't think that we see Hunt again in his sophomore year where he's a little bit more experienced. There was that stretch from week 4 to 13 where he didn't score any touchdowns. He was still getting yardage. But I looked back at that. I'm like, what the heck was happening? There was Kansas City turned into a dumpster fire for 10 weeks. Their whole offense was awful. It wasn't just Hunt, not getting touchdowns or not converting anything or not even okay, so he didn't break one that was 80 yards this week. Their whole team had an identity crisis where for some reason they just could not put anything together constructively or consecutively for more than 2 quarters.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of kind of question marks around Hunt, and like I said, I actually have him the lowest. I thought it would be the only person here, but I guess everybody has a little bit of questions, but Aaron a little bit more on the side of upside there. So let's move down to the next guy who has, in my opinion, a good amount of question marks. Dalvin Cook comes in as our 10th running back off the board, 9.4. Siggs, you got him at 9. Rocco, you got him at 13. Rocco, why don't you go first? Tell us why you're not liking Cook so much, and then Siggs jump in with why you do.
At 13, I can't really say I'm not liking him that much. I do admit that he has a great chance to finish as a 1, but I mean, you know, we're talking about a guy that got hurt last year. I mean, we really didn't get. I mean, we saw a couple games. That's the sample size that we have of him. I mean, you got Latavius Murray that's going to get some carries. The coach is already talking about he's going to continue to get some carries. I mean, you know, coach is not always going to give it to the most talented guy. They're gonna feed everybody around, and you know, for some reason they like Latavius Murray there. I mean, I'm not a big fan, but he's going to get some carries. You know, it's just enough question marks. You know, you got a new quarterback. I think it should be better than last year, but you know, I and it's you know they got a lot of passing attack options as well. So I'm just not he's not in the top half for me.
Yeah, there's concern there with Latavius Murray, but people point to, well, Cook had the hot start last year. He averaged 16.4 PPR points a game in his first 4 games before tearing the ACL. But remember, Latavius Murray was not fully healthy then. He's had a good training camp thus far, reportedly. And my concern is the Vikings, with Super Bowl aspirations and wanting to protect Cook's long-term value, they limit the number of carries he get, especially in garbage time situations where they're up by 20, they're just trying to kill the clock. And instead, let Murray take those carries in the beating instead, saving Cook for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they will probably. Well, they won't probably. They'll definitely be slowly easing him back into the run game. I mean, the other night he had, I think it was like 2 carries he had, and he totaled up 1 yard, and he got hit once or twice. And I don't think they were worried about, oh my God, he got hit. But it was one of those things where you test the knee out, you make contact or have someone make contact with you in an actual game. You get that mental well-being back. And I don't know. I have a good feeling on Cook. He was doing really good last year. And look how their offense did last year. I mean, they were, even without a gigantic threat of the running game. I know Murray was serviceable, and they had some other people that helped pick up the pace with that. But I just think adding him back in there, he will be able to help the run game, and they're going to be able to pass a lot better. And again, it's going to kind of protect him where he's not going to have to carry the load. And I think, you know, Murray's going to be a slight watch that you have to kind of be like, okay. I mean, I had a home league draft today, and it was, I got Cook, and then I made sure later on, as soon as Murray came up, it was an auction league. As soon as Murray came up, I just outbid the guy at the end of the draft, and I got Murray and Cook. So in case he does go down again, or I was out for 3-4 weeks, I got his backup.
Yeah, I think you have to pick up Murray if you get Cook, partly for the reason that Cook won the job when Latavius Murray was still nursing his ankle injury. And then when Cook went out, Latavius Murray, he actually at several points throughout the remainder of the season actually had better stats than Jerick McKinnon. So I think you have to get Murray if you get Cook. But I'm still pretty high on Cook just because, like, I can see him being maybe not a true workhorse in Minnesota, because I do think that they like Murray out there, but I could see him being the go-to guy, the guy that's going to get the majority of, the between the 20s work, and then occasionally being able to break one for a decent run. A guy that they can also run at the goal line. Like, even though that's what Latavius Murray has been a career maker for him, I could see Cook being a guy that they can really put all over the field there. So that's why I'm a little bit high on Cook. Obviously, there's still the question mark there about his knee and his health and whether or not he can come back 100%. But
I would worry about that thing becoming a 3-way timeshare with Rock Thomas.
Is that a joke?
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, maybe next year, not now.
Yeah. All right, let's move down to CMC. He kind of is off by himself here because he comes in at 10.6 for us, the 11th running back off the board. So a little bit of a jump, but he kind of fits in between this tier and the next tier, and it just made it look better to have all the sophomore running backs in there. Mike, you actually got CMC at 8, which is ever so slightly the highest. So where's the love coming from?
Well, again, my rank is off PPR, so obviously McCaffrey has higher value there than in non-PPR. Non-PPR, he's in the mid-teens for me. But what does it for me is he finished last year as the RB10, despite averaging less than 7.5 carries per game and under 12.5. I'm sorry, 7.5 carries per game and 12.5 touches per game. By comparison, Carlos Hyde, who was the RB8, had 15 carries and 19 touches per game. Okay, McCaffrey is a PPR stud, ranked 3rd in the league among running backs in catches, and tied for 13th in the league overall. I'm not worried about C.J. Anderson at all. McCaffrey has more preseason touches, has averaged more yards in the preseason, has been getting more run with the ones in the preseason. And we keep getting these little snippet reports from Rivera and North Turner that they would like to get McCaffrey 20 or more touches a game. And while I think 25 to 30 is pushing it, 20 is probably a good ballpark for him. And either way, he averaged 12.5 last year. So if you take a 50% bonus of that, his floor is very safe in PPR because of the catchability.
Yeah, I just to build off that, when you hear coaches talk about coaches and owners as well talk about how many touches they're going to give a guy, you might as well just stop listening, because
for sure,
if you actually do the math for that, it just becomes the most outrageous thing ever. 30 carries over a 16-game season is just astronomical. Yeah. Like, no running back has ever gotten that. But I mean, to say that Christian McCaffrey is a PPR stud is probably an understatement.
Oh, for sure.
Sigs, you got CMC at 11. What do you got going on for CMC?
Well, this still puts him in if you're in a 12-team league, I mean, it still puts him for me right at the base of, okay, he could still be a running back 1 for you. Even not in a PPR format, he's still going to get a lot of touches. Whether you don't get points per reception or not, you're still getting yardage off that. And regardless of how your yardage scoring set up, you're going to get that points. I mean, in some of his games, if you look at it at a game log, 1 week at a time, there's some weeks where it's almost like you're starting, a running back 2 with a wide receiver 3 at the same time, or even a wide receiver 2 at the same time, but you got one position. So, I mean, I like that aspect of it. The reason I probably got him at 11, which is a little bit lower than people, is because I don't like the way that Carolina's offense is. And it maybe has more to do with the coaching staff and maybe like a lack of vision. To me, they got all these skilled guys that they've been accumulating, and it really reminds me of like a college student that gets to go shopping to the grocery store for the first time, and they get all these ingredients, and they come home and find out they can make like 2 dishes with $100 worth of groceries. They got all this skill there, and I don't know if they've got the right skill at all these positions to put them into an actual functioning offense that can consistently perform week in and week out.
Is this a question of the quarterback or the offensive coaching staff?
Maybe it's a little bit of both. I really think
you don't think Cam can support all of these options.
Well, I mean, I think they got all this skill, and I don't want to say the coaches aren't smart enough to use them. I just think they probably need to figure out how can we get all this together and go with that offense and stick with it. It just seems like 1 week or 2 they let Cam run wild. Another couple weeks they're just airing the ball out, then they're running it, then Cam's dinged up. And I don't want to throw it on Cam. I like all these people and all these positions they got. I just don't think it flows together in an offense. It's unpredictable, which makes me not trust it or the pieces of it on a week-to-week basis. And that's where I just kind of ding those guys a little bit. And because of that, I probably don't have them a lot on my fantasy teams because other people are drafting them way ahead of where I got them ranked.
Well, I will jump on it. I mean, this is on Cam. He needs to get a little more accurate and tie all of these weapons in together. I mean, he can't airmail all of his guys downfield, the whole game. He's going to have to be more consistent in his throws, for this offense to take its next step. I mean, the pieces are in place. I mean, it falls down the quarterback. You're the one out there, making the throws. All the cameras on you. You gotta be able to complete the passes to all your weapons. You have no excuses now. You have the offense to go.
I mean, having this conversation, I need to drop Christian McCaffrey down in my rankings. And for one more reason that you guys haven't mentioned yet, and that's the injuries across that Carolina offensive line.
That's the
They've lost a starting tackle for the entire season with an ACL injury. They've lost Khalil Mack underwent surgery. Who was the guard? It was a guard that they lost with an ACL for the entire year. Like they're losing pieces on that offensive line, and yeah, you want to give Christian McCaffrey those inside runs, but if you have essentially a second string offensive line blocking for him, he's not going to get anywhere with him. And now, yeah, can he recover that with his floor, his receiving floor? Yes, to some degree, but he's not going to be able to jump up and take that next kind of step that I was hoping he would this year if they're missing, if I think they're up to 3 out of their 5 starting linemen that are now gone with injuries.
But that might even help him more because if they can't run the ball, guess what? He's going to have to catch more passes then.
You think he's going to go over?
I mean, catches are more valuable than runs. I mean, we all know that. So, as a receiver, I mean, he can definitely that's why I have him in my top 8 because he's, pass catching is so valuable in a PPR setting. I mean,
but how many more can he really get though? Like he already had 80 last year. Like a top elite running backs get like that 80 to 85 receptions. Elite PPR running backs are in that range. Is he gonna get over 100 receptions?
That'd be only the second time in history, other than Matt Forte. I want to say back in 2014. No, McCaffrey's not going to hit that, and I understand your concern about the offensive line. The left guard who replaced Norwell is some Hawaiian name I'm not even going to try and pronounce. Both tackles are dealing with knee injuries right now, though. Matt Khalil's going to be back hopefully by week 1 or 2. I understand your concern about the offensive line. I understand Rocco's point about how, well, if they can't run the ball and Cam's getting pressure up his face every time, the best way to counter that is to check down to McCaffrey repeatedly, and I can see that happening. I just, in PPR, he's going to get enough catches. He got 80 last year. He could push that to 85, 90 even potentially. I understand your concern about the O-line. I'm just not as worried about it as you are.
Yeah. All right, well, let's drop down to the next tier. We got another 4 guys coming in our next tier. They're starting off our kind of end of the RB1, start of the RB2s. And the first guy up is Devonta Freeman coming in at 12.3, 12th running back off the board. I'll go first because I got him at 7, and everybody else has him 11th or worse. I think Atlanta does not have a very what's the right word? Flashy offense, right? Like I think Sarkisian is not the best play caller for the NFL. But I think one of the things that he's going to do is he's going to hand the ball off a good amount to Devonta Freeman. I think that they're like Sarkisian for some reason doesn't seem to know how to work with Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu, and I fear for what he's going to do with Calvin Ridley out there. But one of the things that I think he's going to be able to do is make sure that Devonta Freeman gets his kind of bump back up because he was down a little bit after the Falcons lost in the Super Bowl. He kind of had that down year. I think he bounces back into the RB1s, and I mean he catches the ball, he runs the ball well, and they're gonna have to defend more spots on the field in Atlanta with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley out there, and Mohamed Sanu probably in the slot.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just still think 7's a little high. He does have Tevin Coleman back there. Freeman has slipped in fantasy production each year since that big breakout year in 2015. He was the RB1 that year. was the RB6 in 2016, and then last year was the RB13 in PPR scoring. Freeman is definitely one of the safer backs to take, especially if you get him as your RB2. The only thing I really worry about with Freeman is Coleman's production in terms of the passing game. Freeman's targets have decreased over the last 3 years, while Coleman has increased. And I just worry that, Atlanta says we got Freeman long-term on the contract. Coleman we got for 1 more year. Let's get everything we can out of him this year and let him walk off in the free agency. The addition of Ridley concerns me a little bit in terms of number of targets going to the backfield because Ridley's clearly an upgrade over Taylor Gabriel. Again, he's a safe floor guy, and as an RB2, I love him. I'm just not convinced he's a top 8, top 9 guy.
Yeah, I can see that.
I would agree. I mean, part of this too is kind of like, okay, I am at 13, I think. I got him, just outside the first round. I got him where there's just, 12 guys I like better than him. He does split time a little bit. I mentioned before, one of the things I look for is the competition that he's going to have to face. And I just feel like he's on a plus note. He is a guy that I don't know if it matters much PPR or not. He's probably right around the same spot, bottom of the first round or just out of the first 12 running backs you're going to try to shoot for. I guess there's a little bit of an issue maybe with he was dinged up 2-3 times last year and missed games. But then again, you look at it again, if you check a game log and look game to game, the one game against Dallas, I think, is the one he got injured and had to leave early. So his points that day were out. But I mean, besides that one and the 2 games he missed with injury where he's just flat out off the roster for those 2 weeks, he had, no less than 5 something for fantasy points every week. And that's a consistent producer. So, I mean, he's still not terrible. I don't have him as high as some other people do.
I mean, I understand the Tevin Coleman argument, but even still, I feel like Devonta Freeman is definitely the number 1 back there. I mean, even last year, he still got more targets and more receptions than Tevin Coleman did. Tevin Coleman's attempts did go up, but Devonta Freeman, if he plays a full 16 games this year, maybe 7's a little high. Maybe I need to rethink that one a little bit, drop him down maybe a little bit. But if I had to go versus the sophomore running backs with all the questions around those guys, I'd much rather take a guy like a Devonta Freeman where, my biggest concern is really Sarkisian calling the plays. So I'd rather take the kind of consistency, somewhat of a safety net with Freeman over some of those sophomore question marks.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. If you're more concerned about the floor for some of the second-year backs, Freeman is more a safe option for sure. I'm just more, willing to take risks with the running backs. I'd rather have more of the upside of any of those second-year guys over Freeman.
I mean, Freeman's upside is number 1 RB in the league. He did it once before. He can do it again.
Maybe he does that again, I might go crazy. Of course, I did have him that year in several leagues, so I'll take that last statement back.
All right, let's drop down to the next guy, Jordan Howard. We made fun of him for not being able to catch, but he's been working on it, people. Working on it all preseason long. He comes in as our 13th running back off the board, 13.7 consensus rank. I actually am pretty high on Jordan Howard, but it's nice to know that I'm a lot higher on Devonta Freeman than you guys, and we're all pretty close with Jordan Howard. We're all within two ranks here. So anybody can pick this one up. What has you really liking Jordan Howard this year?
I can start off by just saying, I mean, I got him in my mind. I wasn't doing PPR rankings, and I still have him at 15. And part of that is I think the Bears offense, new coaching regime. I think everything points to positive, but in some ways, I think Nagy's going to come in and limit a little bit of what Howard does. He's smart enough to recognize that certain guys are going to be better in certain packages or in certain scenarios or in the games where you've got down by 10 versus down by 1. So, I mean, I still think Howard can be a good running back. I just don't think he's belonging in the top 12, and that's why I got him at 15.
Yeah, for me, Howard is another safe back, even in PPR, because he's going to get the first and second down work. He was 5th in rushing attempts last year, despite the fact the Bears were a negative game script. If they win more games this year and actually have a lead in the fourth quarter sometimes, he's going to get plenty of garbage time, kill the clock carries. My only concern is, again, the catches. He only had 1.7 per game for his career. And with all the new weapons they've added, from Robinson to Miller to Burden to Cohen having a bigger role, he just doesn't have the upside to finish as a RB1 for me. He could sneak his way to the top of the RB2 range, maybe the RB12 if you're lucky, but he's cemented firmly in the RB2 range for me because of the lack of upside.
See, I think that Jordan Howard he's kind of like what I wanted Crowell to be last year. And maybe that's setting me up for failure here. But Isaiah Crowell last year, because Isaiah Crowell, he played in such a bad offense and still finished as like RB13 the previous year. And I was like, if he was able to do that with a terrible Browns team, then a slightly improved Browns team, he's going to be even better. And maybe I'm setting myself up for, like I said, failure again with Howard here, kind of betting on the same thing of Jordan Howard was just in terrible situations all last year and was still able to put up really good numbers. So if he gets on a team that's a little bit better and his efficiency gets a little bit better and he gets a little bit more volume and a little bit more kind of bang for his buck, he should make that jump, maybe not to RB1, but right at that RB1, RB2 border.
I mean, honestly, last couple years, he's been the best player on a complete dumpster fire. I mean, that offense was awful. And if the new coaching staff makes that offense even a little bit better, I like Howard's chances to, have some really good weeks.
Yeah, let's drop down to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon comes in at 13.9, 14th RB off the board. Everybody has him at 12 except me. I mean, my big nervousness is, it's Cincinnati. They have not shown much last year. They're not showing a ton so far through the preseason. I like Joe Mixon. I think he has a lot of upside. I'm just not ready to put him at that RB1, RB2 line yet.
For me, I really like Mixon. He's one of my post-hype sleepers, one of the guys I'm targeting in draft. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, they've done a lot to improve the offensive line from last year. They traded for Cordy Glenn. They spent a first-round pick on Billy Price at guard center. So they're committed to improving the offensive line. It's not the same poor group they went in last year with. Last year, the Bengals ranked 29th in the league in rushing attempts with only 377. Over the previous 4 years, they finished an average of 7th with 472 attempts. So presumably they're going to bounce back and run the ball more this year, which will benefit Mixon, obviously. The 377 attempts was the lowest for the Bengals in the past 20 years. So I'm pretty confident they will revert back to running the ball more, taking less of the offense out of Andy Dalton's hands. This may be totally irrelevant, but it's kind of odd stat here I noticed. Mixon's rookie year compared to Melvin Gordon's rookie year. They had similar number of touches, similar number of scrimmage yards, and finished disappointingly in the same ballpark in terms of RB finish. Yet Gordon's sophomore year, he finished as the RB7 after an improved offensive line, got more touches, more yards per carry, and more touchdowns, obviously. So not necessarily any direct correlation, but kind of odd that Mixon disappointed as a rookie and Gordon disappointed as a rookie, and then Gordon had that big breakout sophomore year after they improved the offensive line.
See, I really like that comp because, like I said, I'm a Gordon fan because of that kind of anti-narrative of, oh, well, he was a bust in his rookie year. He's a bust. Like, he's going to always be a bust.
I have another comparable, I recently wrote about, Le'Veon Bell, a guy in his own division, also had a 3.5 yards per carry. And a lot of people were scared off, coming into his sophomore year of that 3.5 carry. And he slipped in his, late second and third rounds of drafts. And people that got Le'Veon Bell won championship. I witnessed it. A back that can catch the ball like that, and can run it between the tackles. I mean, he's a guy that can sneak up into your top six. He can be one of those guys that can do it all. He's got the ability to do it. And if the the Cincinnati offense gets any better, there's going to be a lot of big things in store for him.
See, you went too far with the Lev Bell comparison. Like Melvin Gordon, I was ready and willing to accept, but Lev Bell,
it's coming out in writing. I'm gonna lose a lot of.
Well, the Bengals did split him out wide in the preseason game, like the Steelers do with Bell. So I can understand Rocco's point there about they use him in a similar style of way because their games are a little bit similar. But yeah, let's get him to Melvin Gordon level first before we declare him Le'Veon Bell level.
I'm not saying he's Le'Veon Bell. I'm saying he has some of the same skill level, skills that Le'Veon Bell has as far as in the passing game.
I mean, my concern is, can Cincinnati actually use him? And unfortunately, I think his biggest hurdle is Marvin Lewis. Like, I feel like he is just one of those coaches that has been where he's at for so long that he has literally nothing new to bring to that team. And I mean, Joe Mixon is paying for it. That whole offense is kind of paying for it. I want Joe Mixon to be good. I think he can be good. Like Mike said, let's get him to make the Melvin Gordon jump before we go to that Lev Bell jump. But does he have all the skill sets to be able to make that jump into the upper echelon tier? Absolutely. Let's move on to our next guy. Shady rounds out this tier. LaShawn McCoy, another guy with all sorts of upside. Little trouble with the law right now. Coming in as our 15th running back off the board, 15.8 in terms of our consensus rankings. Mike, you are driving his rankings way down.
Yeah, I'm way low on everybody else, and it's a number of factors. Let's start with the most obvious one, the issues going on with the domestic violence accusations and whatnot. While he may not see a suspension this year, or hell at all maybe, it's going to be similar to Ezekiel Elliott. Is it going to be hanging over his head? Is it going to be hanging over the team's head? They're going to be getting asked questions every week. Do you think McCoy's going to get suspended? Is it going to get overturned? How's he doing? Et cetera, et cetera. It will be a distraction, at least to him, if not the entire team. Secondly, who the hell on the Bills offense besides him can you trust? Kelvin Benjamin to some degree. They just lost Josh Allen to a head injury in the preseason game tonight. So who is Nathan Peterman, his 5 interceptions a half, going to be starting at quarterback? I don't know about you, but I'm stacking the boxes against that guy. And they've lost 3 of their starters along the offensive line from last year, and the 3 best ones. Eric Wood to retirement, Richard Carnito to losing his mind in retirement, and Corey Glenn to the trade. I just see a number of things with McCoy that says, okay, deduct here, deduct here, deduct here, deduct here, that he's fallen down in my rankings. He's also turned 30 years old in July, and we know at the age 30, running backs typically start to fall off. Yes, there's the exceptions, but the majority do tend to fall off. And his numbers last year signal that he's starting to tail off. He only had 8 touchdowns, which tied for least amongst the top 9 running backs last year. He had the lowest yards per carry of his career, averaging 4 per carry versus 4.6 for his career. And last year, he had the least amount of yards per game since 2012. When you put the decline, the age, the legal issues, and the lack of talent around him, I'm just staying away. I don't want him in his ADP. If he drops to where I have him ranked as a flex guy, sure, what the hell. But otherwise, I'll pass.
Interesting. Siggs, you got him at 14. Go get Mike.
Well, it sounds like I'm having a hard time, almost impossible to convert Mike. But
Yes.
the fact that McCoy is getting older, I'd wholeheartedly agree with. That's a fact you can't deny. And as they say, time is undefeated. No one beats it. You're going to
Except
be
Tom
out of
Brady.
it pretty soon. But what you got to, or what I guess look at every year, I kind of put him down my ranks before I do drafts, and then all of a sudden, whether I get him or not, he always is one of those guys that ends up surprising me. We're like, oh, I didn't realize he's still averaged 4 yards a carry. Or last year, 2016, it was 5.5. I mean, I don't think he's ever had really good teams in Buffalo. He's definitely had better teams, but even in Buffalo, you got cold weather games, which I guess he had Philly too. But he's one of those guys where I'm not saying he's riding on another 5 or 6 or 7 years, but for the next 1 or 2, and we're talking redraft, so it's the next one, I think he's still right up there. And maybe I'm a touch high at 14, but he's one of those guys where if I get a top running back and he's one of my guys coming back around on another turn or in another tier, I'll take him, whether it's PPR or not, because I think he's solid. And this might be me being, well, I'll just ride him into the ground, or maybe burn me this 1 year. He's one of the guys where I'm not going to jump off the year early to make sure I don't get burned, because he seemed to do it regardless of where he's at or what teams around him. Now, granted, he's got off-field troubles and everything, but who knows? Maybe with all this stuff around him, all of a sudden some team pulls a big trade for him and just wants him for this year, and then he ends up turning into a really, really good scenario.
Yeah, go ahead, Rico. Rock, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, I gotta, if he gets traded at this moment in time, I mean, that kind of just kills his year. I don't trust that he'll be able to just go into a brand new team and just completely take over and provide running back 2 numbers. I just that's not something I would want to bank on.
Well, I'm not banking on it by any means, but I'm just saying maybe it happens. He kind of forced his way out of Philly, and I don't know if anyone saw that coming, just how ridiculous he kind of was there. And I don't know. Who knows? Like I said, I have a good feeling about this year that you can ride him out at least 1 more year.
Rocco, you say something about him getting traded again? I don't believe anybody's trade for him.
To 6 point, he said he may get traded during the season, and I was kind of pushing back a little bit on that.
I'm not saying I have anything to back that up. I just said maybe he forces his way out again, and then he goes to a better team, and it's not Buffalo. So, but that's probably really unlikely.
I don't know if he can land into a better situation than. Fortunately, I mean, it's a horrible situation. Sorry, Bills fans, y'all have a great fan base and everything, but that team is kind of bad right now, honestly.
Team's very bad.
There's not I mean, they got some pieces on defense, but I mean, they're definitely rebuilding, and a running back on a rebuilding team, I'm good. I'm good until really late. I mean, he has to really slide for me to even look at him, to even look his way, to even, wave at him.
Yeah, if he gets traded into a better situation, his value will go up. A lot of my problem with him is the Bills and the lack of talent they have around him. If he gets traded to, let's just throw a team out the hypothetical, he gets traded to the Colts mid-season, that would help. They have a better O-line. Luck's clearly an upgrade. They have T.Y. Hilton. He'd be better off then. My other concern with McCoy is with the change of quarterback, whether it's going to be Josh Allen, Peterman, McCarron, none of those guys are mobile quarterbacks like Tyrod was last year. How much of the read option production for McCoy last year gets cut out now because you're not worried about the quarterback taking off and running? So
good point.
Let's move down to our next tier, because our next tier is kind of even more debatable than Shady. We probably could have put Shady in this tier because the next 2 guys are kind of off by themselves, as in they have people that are either super pulling for them or super pulling against them. So I'm gonna let somebody else do the read in for the next player, because I feel some type of way towards them.
Our gracious host is not very happy with McKinnon. The rest of us have him in the RB2 range. I have him the highest at 13. Siggs and Rocco have him at 19. And, well, our gracious host has him at 37. Since I'm the highest, I'll go ahead and try and make my case. The only concern I've heard about McKinnon that people don't like him is, can he handle the workload? Can his frame handle it? Can he handle the injury factor? Well, he's only missed one game since 2015, so to label him as an injury concern guy is unfair. Last year, the top 12 running backs averaged 290 touches, or 18 per game, roughly. Over the last 2 years, where McKinnon has been in a timeshare, he has averaged 15.3 per game. Now, he finished last year as the RB17 in PPR, and with the 15.3 he averaged last year, assuming he can stay healthy, which, again, should not be a problem, there's little reason to think he can't pick up the extra 3 touches per game, especially considering he's not going to get a lot of work between the tackles. Shanahan's going to get him out in space, get the ball to him. He's going to get 60-plus catches. And I'm just not worried about the volume or his ability to handle. I know he's dinged right now. It's not good for my argument, but he should be ready to go week 1. They don't have a lot of explosive weapons on that offense outside of Marquise Goodwin. And I think his ADP sliding. I think somebody's going to get him at a price, and they're going to be happy with him.
I'm going to let one more person go before I destroy Jerick McKinnon.
I'm underneath the bus.
I can make it quick, and then I'll run away. The fact I got him at 19, this might be, and I've said this before on the other podcast, this is a guy that I'm probably not going to own because I just don't value him as high as some other people do. Obviously, value him higher than some people too. But I don't know. I had watched McKinnon on Minnesota. I know a different offense and everything. I just don't know how the offense in San Francisco is going to come together. He's coming in brand new. Garoppolo's only been there and done stuff for a matter of a half dozen games. Now you got the postseason and preseason time in between there where defenses and coordinators have been able to get tape on and they know Shanahan's tendencies. I just don't feel good about drafting him as my running back 1 or my running back 2. I think there's other guys with a higher ceiling and probably a higher floor for that matter. So I just don't want to rely on Jerick McKinnon as anything more than my running back 3. And again, he's going to be gone before running back 3s come around in most leagues that you draft in. And I'm going to run backwards. The sound you hear will be the wind coming flying off my hair.
All right, everybody duck.
Yeah. So I'm actually a little happy that nobody really brought up the Kyle Shanahan argument because to me that is the worst argument possible. Oh, Shanahan, he just produces RB1s. That's what he does. I hate that argument. That being said, let's play a little game. You ready? Let's go with a toss-up, right? Easy one. Who had more snaps, McKinnon or Murray?
Murray.
Nope. McKinnon had more snaps than Murray had. From weeks 15.
Was he injured, though?
Nope. McKinnon had more snaps from
Murray was injured at the beginning of last year, right?
My apologies. From week 15 to week 17.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry, week 5 to 17. So after Cook got hurt, and they were both in there, right? McKinnon had more snaps. Yep. Yeah. Who had more opportunities? So attempts and targets. More games with more opportunities.
I'm guessing McKinnon if we go by the trend you're going.
Nope. Murray ended up with more attempts and targets than McKinnon on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
McKinnon.
9 of the games, Murray had more opportunities than McKinnon did, even though McKinnon saw more snaps. Who had more all-purpose yards in more games with more all-purpose yards, Murray or McKinnon? Murray did. Murray had 5, 6, 7 games with more all-purpose yards than McKinnon.
I knew where you were going with this.
And if you look at yards per opportunity, Murray still has 5 games with more yards per opportunity than McKinnon. Okay, I can see people being like, oh, that's just all volume arguments there. Okay, I'll give you that one. Maybe, you know, because he had more opportunities, he did a little bit better. But McKinnon's an athletic freak, right? So he should have more explosiveness, more breakaway runs, things like that, right? So who had more 20-plus yard runs last year?
Runs or total plays?
More 20-plus yard runs.
Murray
did. Who had but McKinnon's a better pass catcher, right? So McKinnon must have had more 20-plus passing plays than Murray had 20-plus running plays, right?
No.
Murray.
Wrong. They were tied at 7. And this is Latavius Murray. So this is a player that Murray, does anybody have him in their top 36? 48?
48, yes, 36 now.
Like, he's a running back that you're going to get all the way at the bottom of drafts, if he's even taken, and he's doing more than McKinnon all last year. And we didn't even get to Matt Asiata. What Matt Asiata did to McKinnon when McKinnon had the chance.
Let me ask a question and push back on something. Did Latavius Murray get traded to San Francisco?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay, so I'm not worried about Murray, but I get your point.
Oh man, I hated that dude with a passion.
And you have swayed you have swayed me a little bit. Not to 37 when you have him, but I get your argument. It does make some sense. I still trust McKinnon in the PPR. They get the catches. Murray, and the reason I don't have Murray rated higher is because of the situation. With Dalvin Cook there, clearly Dalvin's the guy. Now, if you told me we're going to put Murray on a team in San Francisco where he's the one, Murray be almost as high where McKinnon is for me. It's the opportunity factor why Murray is so low. The talent is good, just Dalvin's clearly the guy.
See, my thing is, the reason I have him at 37 is because that's the same range that I have Duke Johnson, Chris Thompson, and my other third down receiving backs that I think can do something good whenever they touch the ball, but they're going to be limited whenever they touch the ball. Because on first down runs, McKinnon was terrible. Like, he ended up with more negative yardage plays than Murray. He had more negative yardage plays than Murray had on like any of his specific downs. Like, that's an issue to me that he's getting negative yards. Like,
I mean, I guess
I forgot what the percentage was. I'll have to go back and look it up in was it Pro Football Focus, but you can't tell me that McKinnon is going to be an every down back when he can't get positive yards on first and second down. And now they have Alfred Morris. He's a blast from the past. Alfred Morris could easily take over those first and second down workload from Jerick McKinnon.
You lost me there. Lost me. I was believing everything you said.
If I could just give you my take on the whole deal is Jerick McKinnon. I'll never wind up with him in the portion of the draft. He's been taken in number 27 ADP. I mean, you got Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, T.Y. Hilton, Adam Thielen. I mean, do I have to go on? Doug Baldwin, Larry Fitzgerald. I would take all of these guys. Amari Cooper. I would take every single one of these guys ahead of Jerick McKinnon. So I mean, that's how I see his outlook this year.
Yeah, I can see taking him a lot ahead of a lot of those guys' names. They are a group of safer guys than McKinnon. Yeah, but I got lost there when you brought up Alfred Morris is a blast from the past, and he's going to take over the early down work. If he was,
I think that was like a joke thing.
No, I think he was being serious.
So serious.
No, I mean the guy we need to look out for.
Kyle Shanahan thing. Look at what Alfred Morris did with Kyle Shanahan.
Look out for McNichols.
Hey, even you know what? I'll even give him that. McNichols, Breda.
I mean, just because he got ran away from Tampa doesn't mean he's good. A lot of people get run out of Tampa and turn out to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot see McKinnon is just not an every down back to me. And if I'm drafting a guy up this high, he's got to be an every down back, or at least somebody that's going to push for significant playing time. And I think McKinnon, everybody wants to believe that's going to happen. He has not proven it at all through his entire career that he will get significant playing time. Now, granted, your argument's valid that he's now in San Francisco. But if he can't beat out Matt Asiata and Latavius Murray, something's wrong there. Something's real wrong that he's going as, potentially an RB, right at the line of an RB1.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just still think the Niners gave him all that money, and I gotta imagine Kyle Shanahan has a plan to use him. But we've seen worse free agent signings in the past and land flat on their face. You have convinced me to move him back a couple spots, but I'm not going anywhere near 37. You're crazy. No offense.
Hey, I looked at my guys and I was like, all right, these are guys that are third down backs that I like. I like these third down backs, but that's where I would take him. I'm not taking him with, guys that I think are going to handle a bulk of the workload.
But you're mentioning them in third down guys where they clearly have a first and second down guy ahead of them. Hyde and Chubb in Cleveland. Well, guys before he got hurt in Washington.
So you're telling me AP is now that first and second, a blast from the past, taking those first and second roles.
I will take AP finishing higher than Alfred Morris by 20 spots. Anybody wants to bet that, I'll take it.
Oh, easy.
All right, we'll talk about that later. But
all right,
we'll put it out to the listeners what the bet should be.
All right, I'm in.
That's a done deal. All right, let's move on to a guy that probably will get a bulk of his team's carries. Alex Collins comes in at 18.7, 17th running back off the board. We all agree on Alex Collins. We all got him either 16 or 17.
And there's nothing to hate on Collins. I mean, he outside the clear-cut first, 7 or 8 guys, Collins probably has the safest floor amongst the top 30 running backs. Nobody on Baltimore is going to challenge him for the starting gig. Kenneth Dixon can't stay healthy. He's reportedly on the roster bubble. Buck Allen is a third down guy. And they really like Collins. They had 12 draft picks, the Ravens, and they did not use a single one on a running back. He has the job to himself. Nobody's going to challenge him. And if you look at what he did after he got really cemented as a starter the last 7 games last year, he finished as a top 24 RB 5 times and averaged 16.7 points per game, even in PPR. Somebody make an argument why he's not the safest RB2 for me.
Nope, can't. I mean, the only thing going against him is people that put too much stock in draft capital because he was an undrafted free agent. But then again, so was Arian Foster.
Yeah, and Seattle cut him and then wasted a first-round pick on Rashad Penny to have him sit behind Chris Carson, who was 4 picks away from being undrafted. So draft capital does not mean anything amongst running backs.
I would agree, and this is one of those where, like you were saying, I had the idea they didn't draft a running back, and maybe some of that's with Ozzie Newsome's love of tight ends, but they could have in many ways free agency draft figured out some other way to get a better running attack, and they figured Collins was their best guy. I've read some stuff and heard people say they've seen him and that he's kind of sculpted his body and positioned his weight a little bit better. It might be honestly more of a Ravens offense hate if you hear people talk about that they're dinging Collins or moving him way down. I don't think that's any of us though, because we all got him right in the top end of that running back 2 scenario, and he's got to be your safest guy. So hate to repeat everything, but I would agree with you.
Yeah, and anybody who's docking Baltimore's offense, I get it. I don't like Flacco. Lamar's not ready. Crabtree's solid. But outside of that, I'm not liking anything. But Alex Collins is the one guy that you can say, you know what? He's the guy I want to target on the Ravens. And after that, I'm good with leaving him alone.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and the hidden upside with him is if, Flacco eventually, goes where he's supposed to go right there on the bench, and one of these running quarterbacks come in, and he can really open up his upside with, a strong running game. a stronger running game, having that, that option with the running quarterback.
Very true. The Ravens also have a very underrated run offensive line. Orlando Brown looks like a steal in the third round. There's nothing to hate on Collins here. I'm sorry, nothing.
It's not sexy, but he's definitely really good RB2.
Very true.
So let's drop down to the next guy, which is the start of the next tier. We got Dion Lewis coming in at consensus rank 20 and our 18th running back off the board. I mean, I have him a little bit lower than everybody else, simply because I see him as a split back, whereas the other guys that are kind of around him here, I see as more of the every down guys, like an Alex Collin, who's an every down guy. And the guy that's coming up in next in the tier, I see as more of an every down guy. So, Siggs, you got him at 17. What has you drawn to Dion Lewis?
As I say, I can start us off. It might be more so. I did have him lower, and then it's like my lack of faith in Henry is kind of what made me push him up a little bit. Again, I didn't really do PPR, although I could probably make the argument, okay, I had him at 17. He's going to get a lot of catches. And again, if you don't even get points for receptions, he's going to get a fair chunk of receptions, and the yardage that he gets, you'll get points for the yardage. It takes more, but you're going to get those points. I'm sick of people saying this, but here's the New England Patriots connection with Vrabel coming in as the coach. They will use him in a way that he's going to get you points. Now, granted, he might not get goal line duty. I don't think anyone would fault them for pulling for pulling Lewis in replacing him with Henry at the goal line. But Lewis is someone that I think is kind of come back time and time again. Here he's switching teams again, and he definitely had better success in New England than he did in Cleveland, or Philly, sorry. But I just believe that he's going to get your yardage in receiving and rushing. And you got the offensive coordinator, Matt LaFleur. He's supposed to be doing better things with that offense, which I guess maybe won't be hard in some people's eyes. We're all waiting for Mariota to come around. I don't know if Lewis will help him come around, but I think he's going to help their team. And that's why I got him at 17.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to help the Titans more, and he's going to help fantasy owners. I don't really like anybody in this tier. All these guys kind of scream meh to me. I believe the plan for Tennessee is to use Henry on the early downs on the goal line while Lewis gets the third down, the 2-minute drills. Lewis's health is another factor. He's missed 18 games over the last 3 years and has only played 16 games once last year in a contract year. And now that he's been paid, he's not maybe as motivated to play through that nagging injury or whatever else. And the Titans might say, he's dinged, he's dagged. Let's send him a game and just give Henry all the workload.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I completely buy that. I think Tennessee is going to do just as close to a 50-50 split as probably any team has ever done, because Dion Lewis was able to handle early down work for New England. And Derrick Henry, I don't know why they pretty much, it seemed like they only ran him at the end of games last year. And that might just be because that's where he got all of his yardage. That it seems like to me that's the only time that they ran him. But I feel like even though everyone wants to tout Derrick Henry as being the 1-2 and then Dion Lewis being the 3, Lewis actually was really successful with the Patriots on early downs. And Derrick Henry, he's just a bowling ball. So I'm real nervous about how they're going to cut into each other's work there. So, that's the reason I have them a little bit lower.
Yeah, I mean, you can't think of Dion Lewis without thinking of Derrick Henry. I mean, we've all seen the picture of those two standing, side by side, and it's just like David Goliath, or something big, something small, but it's it's a visually stunning picture. I mean, but as far as the Titans go, I mean, last year, they were an exotic poop show. So we can't really take too much of Derrick Henry's, success or lack of thereof, or lack of efficiency. We can't really all the way hold that against him. So I'm excited to see what they're going to bring this year. And I mean, it's just hard for me to kind of figure out how they're going to break down. I mean, it can be 50-50, or I mean, Dion Lewis can look like the guys look like for the Patriots. It's really emerge and be that efficient guy, making guys missing the hole and like really, getting a lot of more carries than we think he's going to get, because, Derrick Henry might be the one that takes a little bit of the back seat and, gets those touchdowns, but is more of a change of pace for Dion Lewis. That's, that's the upside with Dion Lewis. But, I mean, we can't really compare anything that happened last year, because that was a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I'm with you that both Lewis and Henry, you could see either way, with one guy, getting a little more touch than the other one, or it could be a pure 50-50 split. The one thing I'll say about Lewis is, in New England, he never saw a stacked box because of Brady. How many boxes are they going to see stacked with Mariota, especially given how he played in the preseason?
More often than not.
It's a different scenario for Lewis entirely because of the stacked box. But again, this can be 50-50, one guy one week, one guy the next week, and you're not going to start either guy with confidence until one guy separates from the other.
Yeah. All right, let's use that as an opportunity to move on to the next guy. Lamar Miller comes in 20.1 consensus, 19th running back off the board. We all have, I have him about 5 spots higher than everybody else. And it's simply because I see him being the every down back in Houston. D'Onta Foreman, if it's not 100% official right now, looks like he's going to miss at least 6 weeks of the regular season. And that means Lamar Miller is going to be the only guy there for the first 6 weeks. And he's just going to be able to be the number one guy on an offense that has a rushing quarterback that is high powered, that is going to be able to open up lanes. You saw that all last year when Deshaun Watson was healthy. And even though that offensive line was not good, it was very, very bad, actually, very, very bad. But he was still able to put in work, and he's slimmed down to be lighter, stronger, faster. And, by all accounts, he looks like he did when he was back in Miami, when he really came on strong.
Yeah, I mean, if I can jump in. I have a long history with Lamar Miller. A few years back, I drafted him in the 2nd round, way before he was good. And I followed that up by taking David Johnson. A lot of alcohol was involved. That's my 2nd and 3rd round picks. And I told everybody in the room that y'all just lost. And I looked like a complete butthole for the rest of the year. But no, I just drafted this guy, in the 6th round today. So, we've made up. Honestly, nothing pretty about him. He has some speed. He's not really a great running back. He, if he gets a hole, he can run fast and he's proven that he can take some of the workload. He's handled it the last couple of years, and there's nobody behind him. He has a running quarterback, keeping with this theme, get guys, attached to running quarterbacks because it matters. As a running back too, you can get him, really down there, late in drafts. He's going to be the guy that's not sexy. He's going to keep slipping and slipping. If it's not Alex Collins, Lamar Miller might be your next guy that you're going to be looking for.
Yeah, we all have them about the same, I guess. A couple people higher or lower, but usually a team that hasn't a really good defense, their identity is get the ball back, run the clock. This is one of those few teams that they have a really good defense, and they're probably going to try to, with Nook, I should say. We had a debate about that before. They're going to try to air it out, especially with Watson coming back. I think that's going to only help Miller. Teams that are going to say, okay, we're going to stack the box and stop him because he's your only guy, they're not that kind of team. You do that and you're playing with fire. So I think that'll only help him with his carries. He's not going to need a ton. They can do something where Watson's going to probably have a couple designed plays, although if they're smart, they wouldn't really do too much of that. making sure that their offense is scoring consistently. If they get down inside at the goal line, inside the 5, inside the 10, you're going to have some decent weeks from Lamar Miller. Even if he doesn't have an insane number of yardage, he might have, 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I'll take that every week.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Lamar Miller at where he's going in drafts right now. You're getting a safe guy, usually late, usually a guy that can be your number 2 running back that sits kind of right in that RB2 range, and you could be, you could have a, first round running back, next 3 rounds, top notch wide receivers, and then get Lamar Miller there to be your second guy. Like I'm real happy if my draft shakes out like that. So let's drop down to the next guy. Jay Ajayi comes in at 21 on the dot for consensus and the 20th running back off the board. Siggs, you got him at 18, which is the highest of us here. Still liking Philadelphia's offense in 2018?
I did because I had a lot of faith in Wentz. I did before the preseason, and now they just look like a shell of what they were, and I wasn't expecting them. There's always the hangover after the Super Bowl. I wasn't expecting to come back at full force, but they just look kind of sporadic. I still like Ajayi, though, and at 18, I'm not taking him, as a running back 1. I'm probably taking him as a later running back 2 here, or mid running back 2. I guess I haven't seen enough of Clement, who I like too, but they might be more of a committee, the dreaded committee and the running backs conversation. I do like him, though, from the standpoint of he has the body type. He's got some short spurts, but over certain games, he's been able to carry the ball, put up huge numbers. I wouldn't call him explosive, but he's shown he can do it. He's just got to string it together. I think with Peterson's offense that they've got in Philly, he doesn't have to be a running back 1. And most weeks probably doesn't have to be a running back 2. But I think that's where you're going to find him at the end of the year is his production is going to, I hate to say average out, but his production is going to be where he's going to sit in that running back 2 range right outside of the 20s.
And see, that's what scares me away a little bit is that guy that's, has enough games where he gets into that RB2 range at season end rankings, but on a week-to-week basis, like you just don't know what you're going to get. And that Philadelphia offense scares me with not knowing the health of Wentz. Like he looked good a few weeks ago throwing the ball, but now – people are talking about him possibly ending up on the pup, which I don't think is going to happen. But if it does, that changes everything for that Philadelphia offense for me.
I would agree.
I mean, the thing I worry about Philadelphia is they just really spread the ball around. I mean, they go, a lot of it depends on game plan. I mean, Zach Ertz is really the only guy that's, super consistent on that offense.
Yeah. All right, let's drop down. We should be able to do the last guy on this tier really quickly because we already talked about him a lot with the first guy on this tier. Derrick Henry comes in at 21.2, the 21st running back off the board. None of us are as high as one of our other writers that has him at 15. But I mean, I have him the lowest. I have him at 31, and that's mostly because I don't know what you're going to get out of Derrick Henry. I feel like everybody wants him and is anointing him as this first and second down and possibly third down back and goal line back. And, look at the runs that he had last year, and it's like, well, he got those runs in the final minute of games that were over when the defense was like, oh, he's still playing? That gym class hero is still working hard, huh? Oh, all right, whatever. I mean, I've seen some of his runs against full-on defenses where he looks really good, but I can't put him in that RB2 talk. I'm not getting any shares of Derrick Henry because I'm not going to take him in the 4th or 5th round. I'd so much rather have a Lamar Miller or an Alex Collins. And I mean, those guys, Alex Collins is going closer to like the 3rd round. Lamar Miller's hitting like the 5th.
Yeah, and you say Miller. I'm looking. I got Miller actually rated myself a little below a consensus. He was higher. I think with their, and I said this before, with their new coaching staff, they'd be smart to run the ball. You say, okay, touchdowns are what he might get that helps him become a running back too. Sometimes Tennessee's offense, sputters before it hits the red zone. And I don't see Henry breaking a ton of them. I got him at 20. Maybe I should move him down, but I don't think I'm going to draft him. I'd probably take some of the other guys around him from the consistency standpoint. I'll bow it on this note here. The fact that maybe the only thing worse than, losing your job to an injury is being anointed the one for lack of other people that are standing out. And that's kind of what Henry's been there the longest. Maybe the fact that, the coaching staff doesn't have direct ties to him because they've changed over, but he's kind of been given it because they've gotten rid of everyone else has left. Lewis is there, but I mean, Henry maybe hasn't done enough to earn that starting job, but he's kind of the guy that's there and the big guy that's there that's going to be the one that's counted on to be the running back one.
I think that the thing that I fear about Derrick Henry, and I mean, right now you're drafting him, you're just drafting him because of the way he looks like when he gets off the bus. I fear that he needs a little bit of time to get ahead of speed to get to the hole. I just worry that he might be like a more well-built LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, Henry has the highest upside amongst any of the guys in this group, but again, he also has the lowest downside. At his ADP currently in the early fourth round, I'm not touching him. It's just too early of a risk. I'd rather have Collins a few picks later. I'd rather have Lamar Miller. It's not for me.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there that Henry has some upside, but where he's going, none of us are touching him there. All right, let's drop down now. We got a small little tier here before we close things out with our top 24. We got Kenyon Drake coming in at 22.5, or 22nd running back off the board. I mean, can you trust anything coming out of Miami ever? Like, is that a thing? Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake were listed as co-starters at one point. Like, I have no idea what's happening in Miami. We've used the phrase dumpster fire a couple of times. This is like full on, like, garbage burning in a full landfill.
They are the GIF of the rhinoceros pooing. Sorry, Miami fans, your city's awesome. I mean, I could talk about your city for 20 minutes just based on stories of people that have been there. I gotta go one day, but the football team, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much. The Dolphins are a mess, to put it mildly. The Adam Gase admitted that he listed Gore and Drake as co-stars just to piss everybody off. I don't make anything of it. I'd be surprised if Gore is, the real starter. He may be the de facto starter.
The funny thing about Gore is that they say they're doing it for the fans. Like, none of the fans want to see this.
Exactly. Gore may be the de facto starter where he's the first guy in the field and gets the first carry, but he might get only 3 or 4 more the rest of the way. It should be Drake. He is the more explosive, athletic, younger, better back at this point in his career. Once he took over as the, starter, once Ajayi got traded last year, his numbers across the board were better than Gore's. He was, better yards per catch, better yards per carry, more total touchdowns, and his fantasy points per game jumped up to over 15. When Damian Williams went out in week 12 of the year, Drake had a big run at the end of the year where he averaged 17 a game and would have finished as the RB6 over the whole year span at that point. In the preseason, Gore has 1 carry for -2 yards, while Drake is averaging 6.8. Again, it's the preseason. Everything changes when we get to the regular season. But if there's one player in Miami I'm willing to roll the dice on and say, they'll survive the dumpster fire, it's Drake.
Yeah, and I mean, you have him the second highest amongst all our writers at 18. There's one other guy that has him at 16. I have him at 21, and I want to keep putting Drake lower because like I just don't like Miami this year. Like it's kind of like LaShawn McCoy, where like you feel like you can trust the guy's ability, you can trust his skill, you trust that player, but just the team around them is just so bad. It makes it so tough to be able to pull the trigger with that pick.
Totally agree. I just think Miami's got a little less of a dumpster fire than Buffalo. I'll take Tannehill over Allen. I'll take Stills and Parker over Coleman and Benjamin. It's not by much, but just the tiniest bit.
Yeah. All right, let's drop down real quick to the next guy. Coming in 23rd running back off the board for us, 23.8 is Mark Ingram in New Orleans. He finished his, PPR back number 6 last year? He drops all the way down to almost outside of the RB2s. Who wants to start off with Mark Ingram?
I mean, if you can absorb the 4-game suspension, if you can come out of that 2-2, for the rest of the way, you could have a league winning back. I mean, he produces every time he's in the game, and it's going to be a almost split backfield with him and Kamara. You invest in one of the best offenses in the league. I mean, it's been one of the best offenses of the league for the last 10, multiple years. So, I mean, you're getting a piece of that pie, but you have to absorb that 4-game suspension. But the downside, here's the downside. Downside, one, takes those 4 games and runs. They get opportunity in this juggernaut offense, and they're just good enough, to where, the coaching staff, is not quick to just give Mark Ingram his full share back. That's the one thing that could hinder me from making that selection, besides having the games. But I mean, if he comes back and plays the way he has the last few years, I mean, you can get that guy as your flex, and I mean, you're just murdering people in that position.
See, my problem with that little piece you just mentioned is you're not trying to go for 2-2 because he's actually going to be out essentially until week 7 because he suspended the first 4 games. The 5th game, he has a possibility of coming back in, but who knows how much they're going to work him in. And then the 6th week, he's on bye. So you're really hoping that week 7 he comes in. So you're really more hoping for like a 3-3 start, and then hoping he comes back as, that RB4. Really, just if he comes back as a RB1, and you're able to cut that 6 games to 3-3, yeah, that works out great for you. But that's a risky gamble. Talk about the long con. That's Mark Ingram is the long con of this year.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, when you talk about the 4 games, then the week 5, and the bye, you're getting through halfway through your fantasy regular season before you see anything out of Ingram. So there is concern there. But to push back just a little bit, in 2015, we only played 12 games. He averaged the same fantasy points per game, 17.4, as he did this year. Now, I know they didn't have Kamara then, and Kamara's everybody's favorite thing, but he is still going to produce solid numbers. And even in 2014, we only played 13 games, he averaged 15 fantasy points per game. Where Ingram should be able to make up the production despite missing conceivably half of your regular season is at the goal line. He was second in the league in rushing touchdowns and scored the second most fantasy points inside the 5-yard line, only behind Gurley. And while Kamara can handle in between the tackles and can make the tough runs, Ingram's probably going to have fresher legs at that point and be better off in that role.
Yeah, wherever you get him, and regardless of scoring system, you have to look at what your team makeup is And, when you get him back, whenever that is, Ingram's going to play, into week 16 and 17. You might be out by that. You might be eliminated. So it all is going to be, can you draft him and afford to get him at that price, whatever that price is? Maybe it is as a running back way down the line because people have forgot about him. If you're in an auction league, I mean, you can maybe pick them up and people have going to fill their third running back or fourth running back and don't want to pay that for him. But whatever it is, you're going to have to look at your roster at that point during the draft and say, can I afford to have this guy and not have him for half the year and still be able to make the playoffs by, I don't want to say wasting, but using the draft pick on him, knowing you're not going to have him for half your fantasy season, regardless of when it is that he comes back.
See, my hope for Mark Ingram is the same as my hope for the next guy, at least to some degree. And that's that I don't have to use the pick in order to get him, but that I can trade for him right before he starts coming back or gets his real big kind of breakout game. So for like Mark Ingram, I don't want to draft him, but come week 4 or 5, week 5, he comes back, does nothing. He's got the bye week coming up. Don't worry, buddy. Let me get Mark Ingram and I'll give you something else. And the next guy on our list is Rashad Penny, who's dealing with some injuries out in Seattle, who, people think that he's going to be ready for week 1. Everybody's hoping that that's going to be the case. But even if he is ready, he might struggle. I mean, even Zeke, who I think everyone will agree Zeke is a better running back than Rashad Penny, struggled in his first couple weeks of the season. If I don't have to use my high draft pick on Rashad Penny, but can weasel something out to get Rashad Penny for much less than his draft cost, that's really what I want to do. What do you guys feel about Rashad Penny?
I totally agree with him, and to a lesser degree, Ronald Jones. These are rookies that if you asked us, 6, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, we would say they're their starter. They spent a high draft capital to get them. They're going to be the guy. And then for different reasons, Penny's been dinged, and Ronald Jones has looked god-awful. They have fallen back to the number 2 role, and Carson and Payne and Barber have ascended to the number 1 spots. But I'd be willing to bet you most of us, not all of us, agree they are not going to keep that job all year long. And like you said, if you can wait for Carson to kind of struggle out of the gate, doesn't really do well. Seattle has a tough matchup the first couple weeks against the run, I believe. Carson struggles. They go to turn to Penny a little bit. If you can buy low on him then, like we were talking about with Ingram, it's great value. I'm not going to draft him, but like you said, trade talks week 3, week 4, I'm going to start targeting him then.
Guys, anything you want to jump in with Rashad Penny?
Go ahead, I mean, I can tell you my whole feeling on Penny is I got a lot of Penny drafted. Or a couple months ago, I was drafting him, aggressively in rookie drafts, and this whole Carson thing, every single one of my friends has been taking a dump on me every single day with this Chris Carson mess over and over again. Carson had one good game. I mean, he looks good now, but I mean, Penny was drafted to be, the number 1 there. Athletically, he's gonna make a lot happen. I'm just not sold on Chris Carson, honestly. I mean, he has to show me more. I mean, a guy that did nothing in college, and was so crappy that he got drafted in the 7th round, is going to Cinderella his way into 1,000 yards this year. I mean, get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Carson was a 7th round pick too. So, like, not to put too much stock in draft capital or anything like that, but Rashad Penny, they went out and used that capital to get him. Whereas Chris Carson, he doesn't have that going for him. I honestly, I don't want anything in Seattle. Like, I've made it very clear that I think the Seattle run game is just god awful. Like last year, especially, their entire rushing offense was 4 rushing touchdowns, and Russell Wilson had 3 of them.
Yeah, other than one touchdown, Russell Wilson was responsible for all the Seahawks offensive points last year. It was not pretty.
Yeah, like that is just god awful. And yeah, Rashad Penny can bring as much hype as he wants with him, but is their offensive line still going to suck? Yup.
Yes.
Is Russell Wilson still going to take control and run and do his own thing? Yup. Like what is going to be left over for running backs there?
Not much.
I don't feel like much.
Yeah. The only thing that really helps the Seattle team seem to figure out which running back they should be using has been injuries, where one guy goes out, the other guy, okay, yeah, you're getting more carries, you're getting the other 7 that he had. And I mean, you look at Penny putting on this weight, which is awesome, but I always am leery when some guy puts a ton of weight on, and I'm not even talking about like PEDs or performance enhancing drugs or anything, but when you add so much weight all at once and your frame's not too big to begin with, I mean, he's not even 6 feet, and he was 220 at the combine, and now he's up to almost 240. He's at 236, 237. That's not good. That stresses out your body. I know he's a young kid, but that's one of those things where Seattle's high on the list of one of the teams where I just don't want to look at their running back stable and even have to pick them. I'd rather have someone else as a flex. And it's just, it goes back to when they threw in the Super Bowl instead of running. It lost all confidence in my mind as how to run the football.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to trust Marshawn Lynch at the 1 yard line, I will forever question your coaching ability.
Exactly.
So with that said, Ben, why don't you lead us off with your lock for RB3? So just so the listeners know what's happening now, this is a little bonus for you guys. We went through our top 24. Now, all 4 of us are going to give you one guy that is like our lock for an RB3. We think they're definitely going to be in that RB3 range. And then we're going to give you a second bonus because we're also going to give you a long shot guy, a sleeper guy that you need to keep your eye on because they're going late in drafts. They're being undervalued right now, and they could turn out to be huge for your fantasy team. So, Ben, why don't you start us off with your lock for RB3?
Okay, well, for RB3, I think I like Marshawn Lynch. I mean, you can look down the list and pick a guy right outside the top 24. And I did that, I think, in the wide receiver pod. But this time I went a little bit further down, maybe not a heck of a lot. But Lynch is the guy I want kind of because of the coaching change. Not only because of that, but because of that, Gruden seems to take his best running back and just run him into the ground. And I know here's some age on Lynch's tires, but for anyone that watched the game, I don't know how many highlights they had of Lynch's run in the Detroit game, but it was called back because of a stupid penalty. And it was just like he took off and he looked, I know it's preseason, but he looked rejuvenated. I mean, it was just like, holy cow, watching him just pull away from guys who are younger than him and had decent angles, and he just blew them away. So I don't know. I have a decent feeling that Lynch is going to be someone that, looking at the rest of the people around this running back 3 area, I'm taking him because there's a lot of rookies in this range and people that you always seem to see running backs have some kind of hammy injury or dinged up. And Lynch knows how to deliver a hit for sure. We've all seen that. But I mean, he's smart enough too. If he can't outrun a guy, he knows how to take a hit or he'll step out of bounds. And in this range, I guess I want a veteran as opposed to a running back. A running back might be a more popular pick, but I'm going with Lynch and going all in with him on my lock as a running back 3.
Yeah, I don't mind it partly because Gruden is playing up the whole we're going to go back to the 1990s football of just, smash mouth, not exotic smash mouth because that's just dumb, but just regular old smash mouth football. And there's no better running back for it right now than Marshawn Lynch. Like that's what he does.
Yeah.
Mike, you want to go next with your lock for an RB3?
Sure. Real quick, though, about Lynch. I do like the pick of Lynch. I actually have him as the last RB2 because I don't think there's anybody in that team who's going to challenge him. And like you said, Gruden wants to go back to the 90s and run the ball and, play ugly smash mouth football. But my guy for RB3 lock is Duke Johnson. And Carlos Hyde got all the hype. He was the big free agent acquisition. Nick Chubb was a top 40 pick. He got all the hype. But people forget Duke Johnson finishes the RB11 last year. Now, nobody expects him to do that again with all the new additions of Landry and Gordon coming back healthy and the two backs. However, he finishes a RB3 in 2016, and he finishes an RB2, late granted, in 2015. And his role as the pass-catching third-down back is locked in stone. They gave him a nice contract extension this offseason. And while some say, oh, well, Hyde caught a career number of passes last year, he was the only guy in that backfield. As opposed to now, Duke, who had 93 targets last year, is clearly the better guy in that spot. So we'll see Chubb and Hyde duke it out for early down work, and eventually Chubb will take over, and Hyde will be kind of kicked to the curb. But Johnson has averaged 5 targets per game for his career, and that really shouldn't change this year, despite the addition of Landry and the new running backs.
Yeah, I like the Duke Johnson pick there. I mean, the fact that he finished as an RB1 in PPR last year, just to say that he's going to be an RB3 is a really safe pick there.
Very true.
Yeah, with that extension, they like him for the role that they're going to put him into.
Exactly. People are going to say Hyde's going to cut into that. I'd be surprised if Hyde hits, 33 targets this year, which was his career high until last year. I mean, Duke Johnson is cemented in that role, and Hyde's going to have to fend off Nick Chubb for his work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Hyde does fend off Nick Chubb for this year, but
next year gone.
Neither Chubb nor Hyde is going to make any difference to Duke Johnson's, play, yardage, receptions, just the way that Cleveland uses
their whole line is terrible.
All right, Rocco, you're up. Who's your lock for an RB3?
Rocco may not be
Rocco.
He's muted, but I don't know.
Rocco, unmute your microphone. Okay, no Rocco. This will all get cleaned up in post-editing.
Hold on, he's back. He's back.
Wait. Rocco, do your RB3.
Well, he was back.
Nope. Rocco's not back. All right. My pick for RB3 is Jordan Wilkins. I really wanted to stay away from my flowing Colts love for the 2018 season, but I just can't see another running back in the Colts organization being able to do really much of anything. And I think that offense is going to make, obviously a huge rebound just with the fact that Luck is healthy, but Luck being healthy opens things up for the offense there. Marlon Mack is already hampered with injuries. Nyheim Hines is fumbling the ball, like walking down the street of the training camp. So Jordan Wilkins, he looks the part, he's running the part, and if he's running next to Andrew Luck throwing the ball, he's going to do just fine. Mack is a decent pick where he's being picked because sometimes he's dropping down to the 7th round or even 8th round. But Jordan Wilkins, you can get in like the 13th, 14th, 15th. I had a recent 10-man draft that he didn't even get drafted in. So he's a guy that you can get super late and should be an RB3.
Yeah, I agree. Wilkins is the only Colts back I'm even considering drafting. Mack is dinged up with an injury and is a question mark to play week 1, and we know he has trouble staying healthy back to his days at UCF. Like you said, Nyheim Hines is fumbling the ball just after practice, going into the locker room, can't hold on to it. Turbin, Christine Michael, I'm not buying any of that. I'll take Wilkins in the late rounds. Like you said, his ADP is phenomenal, and watch him walk his way to an RB3 finish.
Yeah, I gotta watch on him in a couple of my leagues where, one of my guys goes down early with an injury. If he's still there, he's one of the first guys I'm gonna try to hit waivers for.
I think if he's not somebody that you walk out of your draft super late on, he needs to be on your watch list.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, RB3s. Sorry, that's our RB3s. Our long shot, they're sleepers. Why don't you go first, Ben?
Okay. My long shot / sleeper is So For a Reason. I had written an article earlier in the year about buys and who you should buy at running back. And one of the guys I believe in, and that's why I'm throwing him out here now, is Aaron Jones from the Packers. What might stop him from being someone that hits this year would be Mike McCarthy thinking that he has to throw the ball all the time. Obviously, with Aaron Rodgers, he probably should. But Aaron Jones, when he was playing last year and given a shot, he averaged almost 2 yards a carry more than Jamal Williams. He averaged 1.7 yards more than Montgomery, and I know he's dinged up with something right now. Some way this has to kind of clear itself up if you want to take a look at Jones and have him on your roster. In my mind, the long shot sleeper is my pick is someone you maybe wouldn't draft unless you got a really deep rosters for some reason. But if McCarthy can get out of his own way and the running back by committee in Green Bay kind of works itself out, whether it's through injury, whether it's through maybe they got injury at wide receiver and they got to put Montgomery at a wideout and play him there instead. Aaron Jones is someone that you should be able to maybe, again, just watch for and swipe up when you see his opportunity come, because with his 2-game suspension, in some ways I make marks in a list and look for these guys and be like, okay, that's going to scare everyone away. Where it's Ingram's for 4 games and he's got his bye early, it's a little different. With 2 weeks off, I mean, he's playing in the preseason. He looked explosive. His stats might not come out that way in the box score. He's quick. He's got a decent build to him. He's only 5'9", but he's he's around 210, probably 212. He's someone that I think could be good. The only problem, in addition to McCarthy, is he's not the best blocker out of their running back field. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers can scramble, but one wrong hit and everyone's seen how good Aaron Rodgers is making everyone, coaching staff, roster in Green Bay, look.
Yeah, I agree with you that Jones has some sleeper potential to him. Whoever can separate themselves in that Packers backfield has the upside that really finishes a low on RB2. My problem with Jones is he's battled injuries. He had the hamstring issue early in the preseason. He, missed a couple games last year. Ty Montgomery's foot issue he suffered in the preseason is minor, but we know he can't stay healthy either. Of the trio, I'd rather have Williams. I know he was the least productive in terms of yards per carry last year, but of the trio, he's probably the best in pass protection. He's the one that can stay healthy. And if he can come out during the first 2 games where Jones is suspended and start off hot, McCarthy may say, you know what, he pass blocks, he's doing well. Let's not upset the apple cart. He's the guy. But I do like Jones to some degree.
Yeah, and I think Williams will get drafted. Jones won't. He could be someone you get later or waiver him.
Williams will definitely go much higher. Jones,
Yes.
You probably will get in the later part of the draft. Maybe he goes undrafted, but Williams definitely his ADP is far and away much higher.
Yeah, he'll get drafted.
Yeah, and I think you guys just touched on the 2 points that I was going to make about Williams being the guy that's probably going to be the safer pick. But Aaron Jones has all the special ability to potentially be a breakout kind of guy later on in the season, depending on whatever happens with Green Bay, because that Green Bay backfield, minus Eddie Lacy, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Mike, who do you have for your long?
Well, I don't want to call this guy a sleeper because I think he's well known, especially after he's playing the preseason thus far, and I've been on his bandwagon for years. But James White, Well, no respect. Everybody says don't draft the Patriots running back. It's playing Russian roulette. You don't want to deal with it. But White actually is sneaky good in PPR. Now, if you don't expect him to be your RB1, your RB2, hell, even your RB3. But as that RB4, when the bye weeks start to kick in, you got 2 guys on a bye, and you're like, I just need to get a solid 9-10 points out of him. He's your guy. Last year's the RB38 in PPR, averaging just under 10 a game. He was the most targeted and had the most catches among Patriots running backs and finished 4th overall on the team. And we know they've lost weapons. Cooks was traded. Michelle's dinged. Burkhead's dinged. They lose their receivers daily now, it seems like, to cuts and retirement. And what I found interesting looking at White's stats over the last couple of years, he actually finishes as an RB1 or 2 more often than you think. Over the last 3 years, he has 14 such games as a top 24 guy, and then another 13 more as an RB3. And to put it in percentages for you, he's finished as an RB2 or better in 32% of the time, an RB3 or better 61% of the time. So, again, when you're getting him as the RB41 according to Fantasy Football Calculator in the 9th round, for me, if I'm getting as my RB4 after having some high upside guys in the 1st or 2nd spot, I'm loving it.
Yeah, I think the New England backfield is just very questionable. And there's always going to be question marks there because you never know which guy is actually going to do it.
Yeah, and White will have his games, 1 or 2 times a year where Belichick will have some bug up his rear end and just say, we're going to go somebody else. But given that Michelle's dinged and Burkhead's dinged, he might be the only healthy guy come week 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't mind it. And honestly, I think James White deserves to have an RB1 season after he was robbed of the MVP in Super Bowl, whatever that was against the Falcons.
They always give it to the quarterback. It's just how it works.
Yeah,
You let them deserve 2 MVPs either, but we won't get down that road.
Yeah.
Well, White had 14 catches that one. I mean, he helped Brady get those stats and do the comeback. And he had 2 rushing touchdowns too. So
very true. And then right after that, they gave him that big contract extension, especially for the Patriots. So they are firmly committed to White. And that's why I think he's the best bang for your buck in terms of ADP value, because he is going to be involved in the offense no matter the situation.
Yeah, less likely to fumble too, which is the quickest way to piss Belichick off.
Exactly, and that's Michelle's problem.
Yeah. All right, Rocco, you're up.
Okay, all right. Let me go. Am I going to go first with my my running back 3? Because
did you not read this the
conversation?
I'm like, Rocco. No, I just like completely got
Rocco. You keep giving me shit to edit out. All right, we're gonna do your sleeper because I can edit it in a little bit easier, and then we'll do your RB3 all the way at the end. We'll just do it separate, and I'll plug it in. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, my sleeper is gonna be Chris Thompson. I mean, he was one of the he's one of those satellite backs that you can get late in drafts. I mean, I'm a little worried about his injury status, but once he comes back in, I mean, they have a bunch of bums, literally as the 1st and 2nd down guys there. So I mean, I don't see much success out of those guys at all. I think that team's going to be in a bunch of 3rd down situations, and I think Chris Thompson is a guy you can get late, and he's got definitely somebody that you can put in as your flex, more often than not.
My only concern with Thompson is reportedly he's not fully confident cutting on that leg, and he himself has said he's not sure if he's going to be healthy until really November. And I agree with what you said that they don't really have much ahead of him, so they may force him back earlier than he's really ready. He's clearly the only pass catcher they got in the running back spot, so that's good for him. But again, I moved him down with the report that he may not be fully healed till November. That scares me that he's still not confident cutting on that leg.
Yeah, and I think that
if he's not healthy, then I'm going to look like a real idiot on that sleeper pick.
I mean, he's football healthy, which means that you always have a little nicks and bruises and dinged up a little bit. He's still going to start week 1. He's still going to play, all the way through the entire season unless he gets some kind of serious injury. But the mental aspect of it is what's a little concerning, is that he's saying it himself that like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be ready. I don't know about this. And so much of football is a mental game. Like you lose sight of that when you see these just physical specimens out there playing a game, but the mental aspect of it of, do I feel confident enough to make this move? And for a guy like Chris Thompson, he needs that because that's how he gets his extra yards. But I like the pick. I think there is a little bit of concern there with his health, but if he does what he did last year when he had, just a handful of games, but those handful of games were almost guaranteed wins because you got a guy pretty much for free dropping, 20 to 30 points.
Yeah, he was on his way to an RB1 finish similar to like Duke Johnson before he got hurt. My concern is, if he's not 100% healthy now before even playing in the preseason, you say he's got, football healthy, he's nicked, he's dinged. For a guy who's always been injury prone, how many more nicks and dings do you have to take before he breaks something and is done for the year?
Yeah, I mean that's the concern with Chris Thompson always, though. Like you almost draft him knowing that like you're not going to get a full season out of him.
Very true.
Their doctors must know that he's okay. Like injured versus hurt. Injured, you're on the PUP list or you're out. Hurt, you can still play. I mean, they had the chance to put him on the PUP list November. He could have been on that 6-week PUP list, and they chose not to. So that was before the other injuries they had. So
yeah, he'll play. Just won't be very efficient play probably.
Yeah, if they can design routes, where he's going to the sideline and stepping out, not taking a full hit from a linebacker or a defensive lineman.
Yeah, he might actually turtle up if he gets that play called where he's supposed to go across the middle, and that play where that he's going to get hit by somebody coming across the field, whether it's a safety or a linebacker. You might see him turtle up a little bit in the beginning of the season, just trying to protect himself. But all right, let's move on. My long shot. You know what? This is for you, Mike. This goes to our bet. Alfred Morris.
I'm leaving now.
Is my long shot. You leave in disgrace, sir. No, Alfred Morris is my long shot because he is damn near free, and he is one of those guys that is just a serviceable back. He's kind of like the Frank Gore, but he's actually going to an offense on the rise. Whereas Frank Gore went to the Colts when Andrew Luck was, just not there. And then he went to Miami, and we've already said Miami is just a complete dumpster fire. Whereas Alfred Morris is going to a team where their offense is up and coming. You got a young quarterback that, according to the quarterback, is better than Tom Brady. So, hey, let him rock out like that. You have some decent wide receivers that look pretty good out there. You have Kyle Shanahan, who everybody wants to, anoint him as the running back coach of all time. Why would you not like Alfred Morris in this situation? Like I'm ready for some home runs in the end zone.
As a Redskin fan, I have hidden love for Alfred Morris, all those great years he gave the Redskins. And I agree with you that at his ADP, which is not even drafted, he's worth a grab in super deep bench leagues or whatever else. But I'm just not to lay on the point again, but it's like I'm just not convinced. First off, he's a guarantee to make the roster, and second off, he's going to take over the $7.5 million per year running back. I mean, if Morris was super talented and all of a sudden just now got signed, that would concern me. And the fact that he just now got signed to his former coach after underperforming in Dallas, I'm just not seeing it.
Alfred Morris started the most recent preseason game, and
everybody's dinged
against first-team offenses first team defense, first team offense, and he's ripping off like 10-yard runs. Either he is decent or that offensive line is decent enough to create that kind of movement. And if it's that offensive line, maybe I'll bump Jerick McKinnon up a little bit more because even he can run behind that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and look at the game itself and see if it was the line or Morris. If it was Morris, well, I might look like a fool on our bet here, but I'm just still surprised that this late in the season he just now got signed to a connection we had with his former coach, and it's just let's see him make the roster first. That's the first thing.
Morris was successful when he had a running quarterback, which he doesn't have, and he's washed, by the way. So but nobody knew he's definitely done.
He's also a lot older than you realize. He's almost 30,
and that's okay. That's okay. He doesn't need to be.
It's a jag.
He doesn't need to be awesome. He needs to be a guy that you can plug in at certain times and he'll help you out. Like he might be that guy that you get, like you said, he's undrafted right before week 1 starts up. McKinnon's still out for week 1. You pick him up. He helps you win that week.
You got an argument there.
He's a guy. My long shot is a guy that I'm not planning to use every single week of the year. He's a guy that I'm gonna keep, always on my watch list, maybe on my bench, knowing that the rest of San Francisco's running backs, at least in my opinion, are trash and not top-notch running backs. So
if he beats out Breida for the number 2 job, whether it's in preseason or after the first couple of weeks or whatever, you'll have me more interested and convinced then. But right now, as long as he's the de facto 3 with Breida and McKinnon both hurt, I'm just not buying it.
Maybe I'll give you an out of the bet around week 2 or 3 then.
All right, we'll talk then.
All right, so
that is the only way he's going to get beat out Breida.
Say that again, Rocco, because I'm going to have to edit that.
Oh, sorry. Season-end injury is the only way that he's going to beat out Breida, Alfred Morris.
We'll have to see about that. But anyways, that wraps up our running backs episode. That is all 4 of our 4-part mini-series. Really looking at literally every position, going through our rankings. It's been a blast for me. I want to thank everybody that's been on any of the roundtables here, especially the guys that really solidified everything for us towards the end here. Sigs, Rocco, Mike, appreciate everything. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. And Rocco, you ready? You're just going to do your lock for an RB3. And then we're Audi 5000.
Sounds good. My lock is when I want a running back 3, I'm looking for a guy that can easily finish as an RB2, maybe even push for RB1 range. And the best way you're going to get that guy is to draft somebody from this rookie class. I'm going to go with Royce Freeman. I think he's coming into a good situation. I mean, that pass catching back guy, Devontae, whatever his name, Booker, I believe he is. I mean, I've seen him play. He's terrible. He's not gonna get in Royce Freeman's way. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to really research whoever's behind those guys. I mean, they drafted him, high in the first 3 rounds. It's not a first or second round pick, but that 3rd round capital. When they don't have anybody there, that guy's expected to come in and be your guy. He's gonna be the guy. He's a huge guy. He's 229 pounds, 6 feet, so he can handle the workload. He did real great things in college. He was amazing, and he has a good speed. He's real good agility. I mean, if you have seen him play in the preseason, you've seen a little bit of that when he's jumping out of tackles and running for touchdowns. I think he's a lock. I mean, I think he really easily can slide into an RB2 role. by season's end. My guy, he's on a offense that's getting better. And I'm going to take him. I think Royce Freeman could be a steal in a lot of people's drafts. I think he can help you win a lot of games.
Oh, I agree on Freeman entirely. I just have him as an RB2, actually. People don't realize that C.J. Anderson last year was one of only 9 running backs to finish the year with over 1,000 rushing yards, while Booker didn't finish in the top 50 running backs, while averaging only 7 fantasy points per game. Freeman's looked good during the preseason. You're right, Booker is absolute trash. There's no reason why Freeman should not be the 3-down back from day one. And he could be a poor man's version of Kareem Hunt this year that just comes out of, I don't want to say nowhere, but slowly builds up during the preseason and then finishes as a top 16, 18 running back.
Yeah, I think Freeman definitely has upside there because he should be the number one guy. And anytime you're the number one guy, you almost are a lock for RB3 because there's only 32 teams and RB3 goes all the way out to 36. So not a bad pick just off of volume and numbers. All right. That should be it. I'm going to stop it now.